You can trust us with your home or business for high-quality work and fair prices. It's the only way we do business.
630-871-5500. CrossComPublicAdjusters.com.
Making the switch to a new communications and IT company may seem like a big ordeal, but if you're not getting the reliable support, consistent internet, and secure solutions your company needs, meet Access One, your local Chicagoland IT experts. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for over 30 years from our headquarters right here in the West Loop. Whether it's VoIP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One is here for you. Serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore, Access One is Chicago-owned and Chicago-run, a trusted IT partner for law firms, clinics, tech startups to manufacturers. We'll make the switch easier than you think. Let's talk. Call 800-804-8333 or visit accessoneInc.com. Rated top 5% in customer satisfaction and a Better Business Bureau A+ rated business. That's accessoneInc.com. Tech made personal, locally.
You need to be tuning into the Retirement Success Blueprint with Michael Stewart, the radio companion to the Amazon best-selling book, Success Blueprint: How to Build the Retirement You Deserve. Each week, Michael shares strategies designed to help reduce market risk through income-generating investments that can provide steady returns. Because if you can avoid a big loss, you don't need to take big risks. Catch the Retirement Success Blueprint with Michael Stewart, Saturday mornings at 10, right here on AM 560 The Answer.
Larry Elder sees a glaring difference.
The numbers of deportations under Obama, they were greater than under Trump. The alleged abuses by ICE also took place under Obama, except only more so. So everything you say about what ICE is doing, people like the ACLU and other human rights organizations complained was taking place under Obama. The difference is the media did not care.
The Larry Elder Show. Weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer.
It's February 23rd, and this is your Fox Daily Snapshot. Today's National Play Tennis Day. The game has been around since the mid-1800s when two friends, Harry Jem and Augurio Pereira, developed the game on Pereira's lawn in England. The first tennis club was created soon after in 1872 and had just 4 members at the beginning of its existence. Remember, it's the only sport where a score of love is a negative. On this day in 2020, South Korean President Moon Jae-in puts his nation on high alert, empowering the government to lock down cities after 602 cases of COVID-19 are reported with 6 deaths. Also on this day in 2020, the first major outbreak in Europe takes place in Italy, with 152 cases and 3 deaths, prompting emergency measures locking down 10 towns in Lombardy. The first mass inoculation against polio in 1954 with the Jonas Salk vaccine. I'm CJ Papa. That's your Fox Daily Snapshot.
The following is a paid political announcement.
There's one thing I really want to say to Donald Trump. If you come for my people, you come through me.
That was Pritzker's challenge to President Trump. But who are Pritzker's people? They're the more than 1,700 illegal alien predators he helped escape from ICE. They're the illegal aliens whose health care, rent, and college tuition you pay for. You can't afford to stay because Pritzker makes you pay for his people. Well, I have a message for you, Governor. I'll be coming for you and going through you. Your days and the days of sanctuary living for your people are over. I'm Ted Dabrowski, your conservative candidate for governor, and I'm asking for your vote in the Republican primary on March 17th. Paid for by Ted for Illinois.
Hey there, Chicagoland. Jeff here from Jeff Buys Your House. For many homeowners, winter can feel overwhelming. There's big bills, unexpected situations, or the stress of owning a home you no longer want. But here's the good news. You don't need to wait for warmer weather to make a change. At Jeff Buys Your House, we make selling simple. Even in the heart of winter, you don't need to fix anything, do any cleaning, and you certainly don't need to worry about unpredictable buyers. We buy houses as is, and you choose the closing date that works best for you. We've made the home selling process easy and stress-free for nearly 2 decades. That's why homeowners trust us, and why we've earned over 400 Google reviews and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. As a veteran-owned business, we handle everything with integrity and care. So if winter is weighing on you, we are here to help lighten the load. Call us at 630-895-9530. That's 630-895-9530 or jeffbuysyourhouse.com and get your offer today.
Hello, can I have your attention, please? My name is Hugh McKenzie, and I'm a devout listener of The Answer. They have partnered with Food for the Poor consistently for the last few years. In the past, I've always wanted to participate, but unfortunately never had the extra cash at the end of the year to do so. But last weekend, I received the mail, and there was a bonus check for $2,500 from Mack Truck for selling commercial vehicles. I decided that I was all in. As I mentioned, I sell commercial vehicles. Everything from Mack, Volvo, Hino, Isuzu, new and used. I've been selling for over 30 years in the Chicagoland market. Call me at 630-918-9534 or check me out on the web. Google my name, Hugh McKenzie, and Hugh is spelled H-U-G-H, McKenzie is spelled M-C-K-E-N-T-Y. All right, thank you very much for your time.
To contact Hugh McKenzie, search Hugh McKenzie on LinkedIn or call 630-918-9534. That's 630-918-9534.
If you're over 65 and struggling with knee pain, Joint Relief Institute offers a guaranteed way to treat it. It's non-surgical and often covered by Medicare and private insurance. It's JRI's Joint Arthritis Treatment, knee lubrication placement that's so accurate, it's 100% guaranteed and can relieve your knee and shoulder pain in 10 minutes or less. Book your risk-free consultation today and get back to walking, golfing, pickleball to cycling without pain or medication. Call 708-315-6800. Meet the provider, get an x-ray and joint consultation. Why wait? JRI has treated over 30,000 Chicagoans and performed over 400,000 procedures. You could be next. Over 5,000 five-star Google reviews can't be wrong.
Stop living in pain. Call the Joint Relief Institute today, 708-315-6800, or visit jointreliefinstitute.com. Locations in Glenview, Oak Brook, and Orland Park. That's 708-315-6800 for the Joint Relief Institute. Medicare and most private insurance plans accepted.
Business owners, now's the time for your business to make the move to a locally owned business bank. Hi, Mike Gallagher here to let you know that you don't have to look far. Signature Bank was founded in Chicago with a simple mission: to help companies like yours grow, succeed, and thrive. Their decisions are made locally by a terrific team that knows your name, cares about your business, and invests in your success. That's why Signature Bank is my bank. I'm a customer. As business owners, they knew that local family-owned businesses were not getting the help they needed or deserved. So I invite you to reach out to my friends at Signature Bank today. Write the number down. Remember this phone number, Signature Bank, 773-467-5630, and learn all about this great bank, 773-467-5630, or visit them online at signaturebank.bank. That's signaturebank.bank. Signature Bank makes commercial banking personal. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
If you owe the IRS or state $10,000 or more, the stress can feel crushing. You may even worry about getting misled by big national tax companies that care more about quotas than people. That's exactly why ClearPath Tax Strategies exists. We're local, not some 800 number 3 states away. We're an independent team of experienced CPAs and attorneys who share your conservative values and believe that every tax problem has a real solution, one that works for you. We will fight to get you the lowest possible settlement. But nothing changes until you take the first step. Schedule your free consultation today and finally understand your options. Call 262-786-4442. That's 262-786-4442 or visit cptstrategies.com. ClearPath Tax Strategies. No judgment, just results. Take back your future and get the IRS and state off your back.
You need to be tuning into the Retirement Success Blueprint with Michael Stewart, the radio companion to the Amazon best-selling book, Success Blueprint: How to Build the Retirement You Deserve. Each week, Michael shares strategies designed to help reduce market risk through income-generating investments that can provide steady returns. Because if you can avoid a big loss, you don't need to take big risks. Catch the Retirement Success Blueprint with Michael Stewart, Saturday mornings at 10, right here on AM 560 The Answer.
Don't miss cutting-edge coverage of daily news on the Alex Marlow Podcast.
For so many years, we thought we would see terror. Is it a Muslim? Now we're starting to think, is it a trans person? And we've indulged all of this. It's completely our fault, self-inflicted wound. We've run so hard away from the science and towards insanity. They'll never stop. They will never be done. They will always try to take more. They will always try to create more chaos.
Subscribe to the Alex Marlow Podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com. Now, your official weather forecast.
Today, expect a breezy morning followed by chilly conditions with a mix of clouds and sunshine. The high will reach 31 degrees. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of a late flurry, and temperatures will drop to a low of 22. Tomorrow is forecasted to be mostly cloudy, breezy, and milder with a high of 42 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Catarina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and it seems to me one of the themes of this election year at the national level in terms of framing the choice for the American people is something that I'm constantly just talking about, but I think it's treated in the minds of, most of the passive voters, which is most of the electorate, as one-offs, and it's sort of muddied by the endless line of bulljive from the left that federal law enforcement is Gestapo, that slave patrols, and so on and so forth, and of course the high-profile law enforcement shootings in the Preddy and Good cases. So it sort of dominates, and I don't think it's been distilled properly for the electorate. What I'm talking about is, on the one hand, you have a party of life. You have a party that believes, philosophically, in the protection of life from conception to natural death. On the one hand, you have a party that does not believe that violence is a legitimate means to political ends. And on the other side, you have a party that calls thugs mostly peaceful protesters, that agitates and behaves in a way that is willfully blind about the rhetoric, which I was just describing. When some people that are marginally connected to reality have been radicalized online by these leftist droog organizations like Antifa to commit acts of violence or attempt to. And we had another one over the weekend at Mar-a-Lago. Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw with the details.
Early this morning, the security detail detected that a individual had made his way into the inner perimeter of Mar-a-Lago. A deputy and 2 Secret Service agents on the detail went to that area to investigate. They confronted a white male that was carrying a gas can and a shotgun. He was ordered to drop those 2 pieces of equipment that he had with him, at which time he put down the gas can, raised the shotgun to a shooting position. At that point in time, the deputy and the 2 Secret Service agents fired their weapons and neutralized the threat. He is deceased at the scene. I'll give you a picture of the shotgun and the gas can to have with you. So that's what we know now. The investigation continues. The FBI is the lead investigation agency on this case, and we will be assisting them in whatever manner they would like, and they will be responsible for answering any other questions at an appropriate time.
And we find out that this 21-year-old from Cameron, North Carolina, was a golf course artist. And which he was drawing. He apparently was obsessed with drawing scenes from golf courses in the Sand Hills regions, which of course includes the famed Pinehurst. Still haven't played there, but on the hit list. I know you were interested. And he also reportedly was particularly animated by the Epstein files. 312-642-5600. Scott Bessent, he's the Treasury Secretary, had this to say about that.
And, Maria, I just want to say, why don't we look back here and think
two would-be assassins dead, one in jail for life, and this venom coming from the other side. Look at this terrible, profane Senate commercial in Illinois. I would call for them to take that down. Take that down, because it is that kind of venom that we don't know whether this person was a mastermind, unhinged, or what, but they are normalizing this violence. It's got to stop. I want to congratulate Sean Curran and the Secret Service for protecting the president and his family.
Yeah, the commercial he's talking about, of course, is the Juliana Stratton spot. Juliana Stratton is Pritzker's LG, Pritzker's candidate for Senate. That's who he's backing. Of course it is. Whoever is the most recklessly irresponsible, rhetorically, and perhaps worse, is where you're going to find Pritzker and Brandon Johnson and Ali G and the entire political power structure in Illinois, isn't it? You've heard the Juliana Stratton. You've seen it by now, right? In addition to being vulgar, I mean, it's just so undignified. This is not satire. This is not, pointed political parody. It's just profanity. It's just the gutter. But that's where things are.
Trump. Vote Juliana.
Trump. Vote Juliana.
Trump. Vote Juliana.
They said it, not me. I'm Juliana Stratton, and I'm proud to have lived my whole life on the south side of Chicago. I'm not scared of a wannabe dictator. I'm running for Senate to stand up to Donald Trump. I'll abolish ICE and hold Trump accountable for the crimes he's committed, just like they said.
Trump.
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 Vote Juliana.
That's why I approve this message.
Yeah, they said it, not me. Just like they said. So clever. Wannabe dictator. Abolish ICE. You ever think that abolish federal law enforcement, a federal law enforcement agency, would be center cut for a major political party to run on? Generally, and specifically to Illinois. You're starting to get a sense of how far Illinois has fallen, how barbaric we are as a state. Just more evidence. And it's not just Juliana Stratton. It's not just Illinois. I mean, it's their entire party. You just see it punctuated in states where they think they're completely invulnerable. Katie Porter, that ill-tempered, maladjusted former congresswoman who's running for governor, this is what she did at the Neo-Marxist Party convention out west, holding up a sign and then, repeat after her.
Simple, powerful message that we can all agree on. Say it with me. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's right. Trump.
F Trump, vote neo-Marxist. That's the campaign slogan. And again, the attention is understandably on Mar-a-Lago, by the way. I'm sure most of you know, but neither President Trump nor the First Lady were at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. They were in D.C., but that's not the point, of course. The point is that you have people animated to go to Mar-a-Lago, the President of the United States' home, and with a shotgun and a gasoline can. Somebody who otherwise enjoys drawing bucolic scenes of golf courses in the Sand Hills region. What happened to that kid? But it's not just on that score. I mean, they're not just coming for the heads of the party. They're not just coming for high-profile people with security details. They're coming for ordinary Americans. They make this clear all the time. Susan Rice did again recently. What Trump has said, perhaps the greatest insight that he offered to communicate what's going on in the culture with these neo-Marxist revolutionaries, is they're not coming for me. They're coming for you. I'm just standing in the way. No aphorism better describes the last decade than that one. And so emboldened are they by their mouthpieces with profile and security details, like your Pritzkers, like your Brandon Johnsons, like the gaggle of dilettantes in D.C. Let's go after law enforcement. Targeting law enforcement for assassination, like the weathermen of a bygone era. But I think it's even more pronounced than it was in the 60s. Certainly the incidences and the participants are more numerous and varied. So in Meridian, Idaho, there was a plot, thankfully, that was not carried out. Meridian, Idaho, there was a plot against ICE officers. Listen to the police chief describing what occurred.
Last night at approximately 11:10 p.m., officers from the Meridian Police Department, the Ada County Sheriff's Office, Boise Police Department, and the Meridian Fire Department responded to a 911 call reporting that a Canyon County paramedics ambulance had been stolen from the ambulance bay at St. Luke's West. Preliminary investigation indicates the suspect drove the ambulance north through the parking lot and retrieved gas cans that had been staged in nearby vegetation. The suspect then drove the ambulance directly into the North Portico building, which houses Department of Homeland Security offices. Investigators believe the suspect poured an accelerant inside and around the outside of the ambulance. At this time, it appears the suspect was unable to ignite the accelerant before being scared off by responding agencies. We want to emphasize that this was a serious criminal act. The theft and destruction of an emergency vehicle not only created risk to responding personnel, but it also temporarily removed a critical medical resource from the community. There has been a lot of rhetoric surrounding the Department of Homeland Security leasing office space at this location, and comments on social media such as property damage isn't violence is absolutely false. This was absolutely an act of violence, and if the suspect had not been interrupted, there is no doubt this building would have been burned, putting the lives of first responders and others at risk.
Mostly peaceful. And that story will get very little airtime, if any, of course, from the D.C. press corps. Related story. Remember the man in L.A. throwing chunks of concrete at Border Patrol vehicles as they sped by? Is that an act of violence? Is that mostly peaceful? He pled guilty to felony assault on a federal officer with a deadly weapon causing bodily injury. He'll be sentenced on August 7th and faces up to 20 years in federal prison. Point is this: the sniper who opened fire on ICE agents at that Dallas facility and killed 2 migrants in their custody that the ICE officers were trying to protect as they're taking fire from an elevated position. Point is, this all needs to be strung together so people understand that these are not isolated incidents that just happen in a country of 350 million people. It's the direct result of a party, some of whom believe that political violence, some of its membership believes that political violence is the legitimate means to political ends because Trump is a dictator, Trump is Hitler, and so the ends justify the means. And others of whom turn a blind eye, effectively, passive-aggressively condone, if not rationalize, the sort of violence that we're talking about, including what happened in Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. And, you want to talk about you don't have a border, you don't have a country. If you don't have a hard line against violence as the means to political ends, then you don't have much of a representative republic either. You allow the state to be, it's an overused term, but it's accurate, weaponized against ordinary people to shut them up or to take them away, then you don't have much of a free society either. So it seems to me this question needs to be properly framed and called and central to the debate while the neo-Marxists preen around talking about saving our democracy as they take all of the steps that would tear a free society asunder. Affordability and other things. Those things are, like we talk about with public safety, those things become less mission critical if you don't have an underlying foundation of liberty. You know what I mean? George in Naperville.
Yes, Dan. When Lori Lightfoot said F you to Trump, it was so groundbreaking. Now it's old hat. They all use the same playbook.
Yeah, well, going down. Thanks for the call, George. Right. It's just the degradation of the culture and the discourse by those who are intemperate, as I said, maladjusted, ignorant in many cases, and have no impulse control, so they're prone to violence because the ends justify the means. They're, risible individuals that become a lot less easy to dismiss when they get together in mob action, or they hatch a plot to try to assassinate Brett Kavanaugh, or the President of the United States, or the head of the Office of Management and Budget, for goodness sakes. You start to get a sense that there's something afoot here, and that's before we get to the other coalition partners in their marginality and solidarity groupings, like, for example, trans individuals and the incidents we've seen of trans-inspired violence because of this misplaced delusional notion that somebody or some buddies are out to get them. This needs to be addressed straight away. All right, let's check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 21 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the QC Kinetics newsroom. A fire on Chicago's west side has left 2 people injured. Police say that fire broke out Saturday evening around 5 o'clock at an apartment complex in the East Garfield Park neighborhood. Several people were safely rescued from the burning building, but 2 of those injured are hospitalized, one in critical condition, the other was listed in serious condition. Cause of the fire is under investigation. Officials say the case against a man suspected in the shooting of a woman at the University of Illinois Health parking garage earlier this month has been closed. Police say the suspected gunman had taken his own life. And travelers with TSA PreCheck and Global Entry will be able to continue using the service despite word from government officials to the contrary. Officials with the Department of Homeland Security had said that TSA PreCheck and Global Entry would be discontinued due to the partial government shutdown, but TSA officials say the services are working, at least for the time being. This report is sponsored by Mattress Firm. Score major deals on top brands at Mattress Firm's President's Day sale. Find your dream mattress today. Their sleep experts are highly trained to find the right one to fit your unique needs. They make sleep easy. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now.
This November, Illinois voters will have the chance to fire Governor J.B. Pritzker and replace Dick Durbin in the U.S. Senate. Don't miss AM 560's Republican debate on Thursday, February 26th, as candidates for governor and the Senate will debate. Hear the debate live starting at 7 p.m. right here on AM 560, or watch it live on the AM 560 YouTube channel and Facebook page. It's the 2026 Republican debate exclusively on AM 560. The Answer.
Networks, streaming services, retail chains, and tech giants are all adding plus to their names. But where did the concept originate? We may be biased, but we think these big wigs found their inspiration for plus at Hassellus Mattress. Hassellus showrooms are employee-free. Give your mattress a try with no pushy sales guy. Plus, our 35 beds from the top 5 brands start at $393. Plus, unbeatable prices on Tempur-Pedic. Plus, free next-day delivery and setup. Plus, free haul away and disposal of your old mattress. Plus, 48 months interest-free financing on select Tempur-Pedic with approved credit. Plus, a $300 MasterCard gift card with your Tempur-Pedic mattress. Plus, a ruggedly handsome spokesman with a smooth radio voice. Get all this, plus a whole lot more when you shop at Hassellus Mattress. Or maybe we should change our name to Hassellus Plus. Nah, Open 9 to 9. Find an employee-free showroom near you or shop online at Hasselist.com.
If you're like most Americans nearing retirement with money in a 401k or IRA, then listen carefully. The U.S. dollar is under pressure. Foreign nations are reducing reliance on the dollar, and some analysts are openly warning about the long-term stability of U.S. currency dominance. Whether you call it currency debasement or the collapse of the dollar, the risk is real. And when confidence in the U.S. dollar shifts, gold and silver historically respond. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000 to get your free gold investment kit. You'll also receive a free copy of Ken Rogoff's book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Most American retirement accounts are dramatically underallocated to precious metals, even as central banks continue buying gold at record levels. Many Americans are rolling over a portion of their retirement savings into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty-free with Advantage Gold. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000. Results vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
Active Liver from New Nordic protects your liver so you can enjoy life to the fullest. Online at Amazon or in stores at CVS, Wegmans, and now GNC.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today, expect a breezy morning followed by chilly conditions with a mix of clouds and sunshine. The high will reach 31. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of a late flurry, and the low will drop to 22. Tomorrow is set to be mostly cloudy, breezy, and milder with the high of 42. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Sports and politics and sports and politics and sports and politics and intersection. Arrogance and ignorance, arrogance, ignorance, and arrogance and ignorance. Intersection.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and it was nice to see the Olympics end on a high note, wasn't it? After all of the controversy, it's probably a bit aggressive, but after all of the ignorance that we had to indulge from athletes that were not sure if they were proud of their country because of what's going on back home, and it was all related to, of course, federal immigration law enforcement and sniping between the President of the United States and skiers you've never heard of and never will again. It was nice to see Miracle on Ice Part 2.
Now Jack Hughes puts it around the car. United States with numbers. Back across it comes. Jack Hughes wins it. The golden goal for the United States. For the first time since the 1980 Miracle, the United States takes the gold. Jack Hughes beating Jordan Bennington. The United States wins the gold medal here in Milan. 1 minute, 41 seconds into overtime.
Yeah, it was something. 312-642-5600 to give us a call or text. Not exactly the Al Michaels "Do You Believe in Miracles" call, but not bad in the moment. The overtime goal that Jack Hughes scored to win it for Team USA after Team USA, the female edition, also won the gold over the Canadians. Put Trudeau and the other soy boys in strange brewland in their place, didn't it? And Jack Hughes, no equivocation. You're not surprised because, hockey guys and golf guys, the most patriotic of the athletes. I think we can all agree.
This is all about our country right now. I love the USA. I love my teammates. It's unbelievable. The USA Hockey Brotherhood is so strong, and we had so much support from ex-players. I'm so proud to be American today.
This was such an incredible game to grind out. I mean, you're bleeding right through it just looking at you right now. Can you just talk about how difficult this gold medal was to win?
Unbelievable game by Hellebuck. He was our best player tonight by a mile. Unbelievable game. Unreal game by our team. That's just a ballsy, gutsy win. That's American hockey right there. That's a great Canadian team, but we're USA. We're so proud to be Americans. Tonight was all for the country.
What does this gold medal mean to USA Hockey?
It's everything. Like I said, the USA Hockey Brotherhood means so much. Look at these guys. We're such a team. We've been together for 2 weeks. We're such a team. The USA Hockey Brotherhood is so strong, and we're so proud to win for our country.
USA, USA. And, of course, there was a particularly poignant moment when the guys talking about the Brotherhood, Jack Hughes was just talking about, honored Johnny Gaudreau, who was killed in a drunk driving crash in New Jersey back home. He was Team USA. He plays for the Sabres in the NHL. He and his brother were killed. Terrible, terrible accident. Well, crash. They were riding their bikes. They're both hit by a drunk driver and killed. And they, I'm sure many of you saw it, held up his jersey in honor of him, part of the Brotherhood, part of their team. And then they panned to his parents in the audience who, couldn't keep it together, understandably. Pretty cool.
And there they are paying homage to the late Johnny Gaudreau. And there's Mr. and Mrs. Gaudreau. Johnny meant so much to a lot of these guys on this team. And I live in the Philadelphia area, and I can tell you that Johnny Gaudreau is an absolute hero in the Philadelphia area, in South Jersey in particular. So many kids look up to Johnny Gaudreau and model their game after him. What a moment.
Yeah, class acts. Class acts, the Team USA hockey team. And that provided some separation between them and some of the other U.S. Olympians in other sports. I'm not mentioning any names, Eileen Gu. No, of course not. President Trump gave Team USA a call and, of course, posted on social media about it.
1 minute. 1 minute. And by the way, your goalie played not bad.
How are you? Say hi. How are you? Say hi to him.
How you doing, Don? I have seen hockey goalies have slightly worse games than unbelievable, and you were all unbelievable. And that team is pretty good you played. I don't know if it's not going to begin anytime soon, right? And, I tell you what, I just told my people 2 minutes ago, I didn't know they'd be calling. I said, we're giving the State of the Union speech on Tuesday night. I could send a military plane or something, but if you would like to, it's the coolest night, it's the biggest.
We're in.
Speech.
Can you pick us up in Miami on Tuesday morning?
Yeah, Tuesday morning. Close the northern border. We'll get cash and we'll get the military to get you guys over.
Let's go.
Boys are going to the State of the Union. The nice thing about being president is I can tell you, you don't have to worry about the weather or landing. So we don't care if it's snowing, if it's the worst blizzard, we sailing through that sucker just like you did at the ice track.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Now we'll do it at the White House anytime. What would really be cool.
Yeah, so apparently look forward to another one, maybe the reason to watch the State of the Union address tomorrow night. Of course, if you're hanging out at Meridian Banquets, so you'll be watching it with me and the rest of the AM 560 team here, so that's a reason. But Team USA in the audience, maybe you can get them to do a little forechecking of any leftists who get out of line. Greg in Jefferson Park, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, good morning, Dan. I watched a lot of the Olympics, and they were it was fantastic in general. I love the Winter Olympics, but one of the other things they brought the team got Johnny Gaudreau's two little kids, and I mean they were little, and brought them out when they took the team picture. They took the team picture, and then they brought the kids out and did another team picture, and that I'm sure that one's going to sell like hotcakes. The last thing I will say about the Olympics is that. Whatever her name is, Eileen Gu or something, the San Francisco commie who skis for China, unfortunately, I don't think she did as good as she was supposed to. So that was the icing on the cake there.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Greg. It's interesting you say that because the contrast couldn't be more stark. This was Eileen Gu, and she was asked about 2 silvers instead of 2 golds. And, and I understand the question is a little bit, like the silver medal in the Olympics is impressive, to say the least, right? But her response is so telling about her, and perhaps gives you good insight into why she would choose to ski for the Chinese Communist Party as opposed to America.
So, do you see these as 2 silvers gained or 2 golds lost?
I'm the most decorated female free skier in history. I think that's an answer in and of itself. How do I say this? Winning a medal at the Olympics is a life-changing experience for every athlete. Doing it 5 times is exponentially harder because every medal is equally hard for me, but everybody else's expectations rise, right? And so the 2 medals lost situation, to be quite frank with you, I think is kind of a ridiculous perspective to take. I'm showcasing my best skiing. I'm doing things that quite literally have never been done before, and so I think that is more than good enough. But thank you.
Right. Doing things that nobody's ever done before may be true. I don't know. I don't follow that. I don't follow skiing very much, or that particular brand of skiing that she does. But when you say something like that, that's really a young lady for other people to say. I don't remember Michael Jordan saying, "I'm doing things that nobody's ever done before." I mean, he had no lack of confidence in himself, as all great athletes do. But he had the class to, know that he doesn't need to run around telling everybody because everybody is telling him because it's sort of obvious. And so a little humility and a little spreading of the credit goes a long way. But that's just not in her vocabulary, clearly. So Eileen Gu, and I understand it's an individual sport versus a team sport, but all of these athletes in individual sports don't get to these heights without a team around them, as we all know. It's just not in her DNA to behave with class. It's unfortunate. Unfortunate. Oh yeah, I don't follow hockey apparently that well either. Did I say that Gaudreau played for the Sabres? Yeah, played for the Blue Jackets, Columbus. Yeah, thanks for the correction. Sorry about that. Eduardo, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. Yeah, the ladies' hockey team was great too when they pulled the goaltender to tie it, and then they won it overtime. It was great to see them, both of them, beat the Canadians. I would have loved to see Carney's face.
Let me ask you this, Eduardo. Are you excited? Are you excited about ESPN Sundays being women's sports only, like that Logan Square bar that opened? Is it still open? Are you excited about that?
No.
Yeah.
And I don't even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Can the two of us just talk here and say, look, we're all for women's sports in the Olympics, but I mean, in terms of paying attention, but on every other day or every other 2-week period of the year, we're not really paying attention, and nobody else is either. Yeah, except the parents. Thanks for the call, Eduardo. Yeah, I mean, I just want to, be real a little bit, can't I? Speaking of the Canadians, there were some hard feelings too. By the way, after losing, Nathan McKinnon said, "quote You be the judge." Unquote, of who is the better team today after the loss. He was suggesting that it wasn't Team USA, even though they lost. You could just congratulate them. It was an upset, but you could just, congratulate the team. Good team, great game from Hughes, and incredible performance by Helly, as Trump noted. Something else, too, though, that was weird for me. Did you see these stuffed animals that were being passed out? It was particularly, I'm sort of watching it again now. It was particularly disquieting when the Team Canada women's team, obviously suffering a disappointing loss, as Eduardo was just describing. One of the women on the team, she gets the official stuffed animal of the 2026 games. It was I don't know, some kind of sprightly mountain creature they called Tina. And you see these women getting, with a silver medal already around their neck. They've already got the silver medal, but then they're getting these stuffed animals, and they're just like looking at it, like twisting it in their hands and just sort of rolling their eyes. I actually can kind of empathize with them. It is a bit ridiculous. There's a formal presentation of the official Olympic stuffed animal. More than a little bit silly, I thought. Okay, one other thing, though. The Canadians didn't lose everything. I mean, they only lost when it came to their national sport. But the Canadian men's curling team won the gold. So apparently, and I don't know how any of this works, but apparently even though they were caught, both the men and the women's team were caught like double touching the curling thing that, slides down and then you're in front of it with the brooms and stuff. It appeared, I guess, if you're only allowed to touch it once and you can't touch it again after you release it, that they were cheating, and the Swedes called the men's team on it, and then it became an issue for the women's team too. But nonetheless, they won the gold, and the team is now again acting, they're feeling vindicated. So to some extent, I get it, but they're telling people who accuse them of cheating, those Swedes, that the picture of them hugging each other with the gold medals adorning their necks, they want that to be, quote, burned into your brain. For anyone who called us cheaters, for anyone who said negative things about Mark Kennedy, about us, about Canada, about our families, I hope the image of us standing on top of the podium, embracing one another, smiling ear to ear with our gold medals is burned into your brain forever. And they accuse the people that accuse them of cheating of like setting up cameras to catch them cheating. Well, whether that's true or not, the question is just whether they cheated or not. I don't know. I didn't grow up curling, and I haven't really picked up the sport since. But the Swedes seem pretty adamant, and it does seem like the rule is you release it, and then you can't touch it. And the one guy clearly touched it because that's guiding it. You're getting like a second chance to guide it, I suppose. So if there's anybody who is a curling aficionado who wants to weigh in and provide additional clarity, I'm happy to hear it. 312-642-5600 to give us a call or text. But of course, and they're still smarting from the Ben Johnson 100-meter dash thing. So, I want to cut the Canadians some slack, but maybe these guys are all jacked up like Ben Johnson was too. I don't know. But anyway, Team USA, that's the highlight. All this other stuff washes away because we're celebrating Team USA, both Team USAs in hockey, and great stories on both scores. Russ, Palos Heights.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dan. After the game, after the gold medal game, I called both local and national media outlets, and I wanted to express my pride in the United States winning the gold medals. In both cases, I was told they were not willing to take my comments because there was not supposed to be a political statement made. Unbelievable.
Right. Thanks for the call, Russ. Yeah. You can't make a political statement. We're proud of our national team that won a gold medal at the Winter Olympics. That's political. Anyway, we have to get back to platforming Juliana Stratton and her supporters to F Trump. Oh, boy. And by the way, it's a really good piece over at the Free Press, The Boys of Team USA, by Will Ron, talking about, the best hockey game in a generation since, do you believe in miracles? And to do it for, the tragedy of Johnny Gaudreau as the backdrop of this. Yeah, definitely an indelible moment for the country, for those young men and the young women too on the women's team. Glenn in Orlando.
Dan, it's very obvious. If Canada was the 51st state, they'd be winners today.
Hi-oh. They had their chance, Glenn. Dan Proft, Chicago's Morning Answer.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
At AlmostFreeTeeth.com, they're dedicated to making smiles great again. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average to get a beautiful dental implant-supported smile. Check if you qualify right now at AlmostFreeTeeth.com.
Mike Lindell and the MyPillow employees want to thank you for your great support this past year. They want to make 2026 the best year ever. So to thank you, they are giving you free shipping on your entire order and wholesale pricing. So they are bringing back the mega sale. For example, the classic MyPillows, regularly $49.98, now only $14.98. Turn any mattress into the best mattress ever with the Made in the USA MyPillow My Mattress Topper and save up to $100. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets for as low as $29.98 or the 6-pack towel set for only $34.98. To get the best specials ever, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. These offers won't last long, so call 800-489-0201 or go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY. Order now and your entire order ships absolutely free.
Raj Shah, host of Unleash Your Wealth.
There are a lot of clients and people coming in from the radio into our office saying, I don't want to lose any money. I need to protect the money I have saved over the last 20 or 30 years, where you have strategies where you can structure an income stream where it has an inflation protection so that as inflation, if it continues to go up, your income will go up.
Unleash Your Wealth, Saturday at 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. on AM 560, The Answer.
Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage. AM 560, The Answer.
Text from 815, will there be any missing teeth at your State of the Union event? I may black out one of my teeth in tribute to Jack Hughes. That's a good idea. All right, coming up at 6:06, President Trump was none too happy with the Supreme Court's decision in the tariffs case, but really none too sad. They had been game planning for such an occurrence, and they were at the ready with a response, as you heard over the weekend from Scott Bessent and others. We will discuss. Take your call, 6:06. It's now 6 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
The Northeast is crippled by a blizzard. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Snarling travel and shutting schools with blizzard warnings from Delaware to Maine. New York City's in the middle of it.
They were still cleaning up from a snowstorm weeks ago. We're now dealing with blizzard-like conditions. This is a bomb cyclone. Where I am right now is right here in Central Park.
And Fox's Alexis McAdams is standing in almost 10 inches of snow.
It's not just that it's coming down, heavy amounts of snow. It's that it's whipping around. So we're talking 50 to 60 mile an hour winds some places across the Northeast. So that's what makes the visibility drop so low, and that's why there is a travel ban.
And while people are told to stay off the roads, air travel is pretty much grounded across the Northeast.
Well, nearly 20,000 flights have been disrupted across the country from this blizzard through tomorrow.
Well, that's Fox Business Network's Connor Hansen at Washington Reagan Airport, and there are also more than 400,000 power outages. The most are in New Jersey, followed by Massachusetts and Delaware. Americans are told not to go to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and those there are urged to shelter in place after drug cartels retaliated to a drug lord being killed.
The Mexican army says it conducted operations in Tapalpa, Jalisco, targeting Nemesio Ruben Osguera Cervantes, also known as El Mencho, the head of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. They say Oscar Cervantes died while on an airlift to Mexico City. The State Department once had a $50 million award for his arrest.
That's Fox's Madeline Rivera. The Secret Service is investigating what happened at the Trump Mar-a-Lago, Florida estate early yesterday. A North Carolina man, Austin Martin, showed up with a shotgun and a fuel can, and Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw says when confronted,
he put down the gas can, raised the shotgun to a shooting position. At that point in time, the deputy and the two Secret Service agents fired their weapons.
Martin was shot dead. President Trump was not there at the time. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 21 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Illinois toy company Learning Resources is taking a victory lap after the Supreme Court's ruling on President Trump's reciprocal tariffs. Fox 32 Chicago's Casey Cronus has the story.
A family-owned suburban toy company is celebrating a monumental victory after its case reached the nation's highest court and secured a landmark win. Family member Stephen Woldenberg gives us his first reaction.
I was online at about 9 o'clock in a one-on-one with a colleague, and there popped up the news, and we found out all together.
In its lawsuit, the business argued that President Trump did not have the constitutional authority to impose tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Like other companies, under those sweeping tariffs, they were forced to drastically alter where and how they manufacture products. In 2024, Woldenberg says the company spent roughly $2 million on tariffs.
After the ruling, the president criticized the decision and announced a new 10% global import tax. Governor J.B. Pritzker has renewed his call for a cell phone ban in Illinois classrooms. The governor spoke about his plan to advocate for legislation which would require all school districts and charter schools in the state to adopt a policy limiting the use of wireless communication devices on school grounds during the school day. Senate Bill 2427 was assigned to the Illinois House Education Policy Committee last week. And Spinosaurus mirabilis, that's the name of the new species of dinosaur unearthed by a team of scientists led by the University of Chicago. The dinosaur is described as a fish-eating giant, and he was unearthed in the Central Sahara in 2019, but scientists didn't realize what they dug up until just recently. Spinosaurus is the first new species to be discovered in over 100 years. News is a service of American Beam and Steel, structural repair licensed contractors for your home and business. Search American Beam and Steel online to schedule your consultation directly with the owner, Mark. American Beam and Steel. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
President Trump reflects on his first year and lays out his plans for the country in the State of the Union address.
The state of our union is stronger than ever before.
What will be on his agenda, and will it include a confrontation with Iran? Don't miss a word of the president's State of the Union address. Tuesday night. Coverage begins at 8, right here on AM 560. The Answer.
A small business affirmation from Progressive. Plumbers, today will be a good day. You will be profitable. Your clients will be nice. No one will stand over you and tell you how to fix the thing they actually hired you to fix. You will also feel at peace after switching to Progressive, America's #1 commercial auto insurer. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, #1 commercial auto insurer from the NAIC's 2024 National Premium Data.
Sleep and relaxation just got smarter. The Zecliner by FlexSteel combines comfort with durable design, featuring custom adjustments like headrest, lumbar, heat, and massage, helping you unwind the right way. Whether you're watching TV or taking a well-earned break, Zecliner is built for you. Comfort, customization, and FlexSteel quality all in one chair. Experience the Zecliner by FlexSteel at Steinhofels.
For months, you've been hearing ads about Virago Immune Support. I have to tell you, this stuff is for real. I had an occasion to not be feeling well on a remote broadcast. I took it, and it is the real deal. And the stronger your immune system, the stronger your body defends against diseases, viruses, and everything else. That's why Dr. Huber created Virago, a liquid immune booster supplement. You take it daily. It's a blend of 23 nutraceuticals working in synergy to maximize effects and boost your immune system. It's the nutraceutical cocktail for an immune system, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. Virago even protects your heart, your kidneys, your liver, all in a unique liquid supplement for better absorption. Do yourself and your spouse a favor. Order a bottle of Virago today online at myvirago.com. That's myvirago.com. Use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. Maha and Virago, making America healthy again.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. We're looking at 14 minutes both ways on the Edens from Lake Cook to Montrose. The Kennedy is 17 in from O'Hare to the Burn Interchange. Outbound is 22. Now there is an accident on the Ike. It's on both shoulders on the inbound side at Route 83. But it's still just 13 minutes inbound from Wolf to the old post office. Outbound also 13 minutes. Inbound Stevenson from Veterans Memorial to Lakeshore is 26. Outbound is 22. You've got 16 in on the Dan Ryan from 95th to the Burn Interchange, 11 on the outbound side. Slow on the inbound express lanes between 33rd Street and the Stevenson, and the Bishop Ford inbound slows down between 103rd and the Dan Ryan. This report is a service of the AM 560 Advantage. Membership has its privileges, including early access to event tickets, exclusive contest opportunities, and special members-only content. Join today at 560theanswer.com/join. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect a breezy morning followed by chilly conditions with a mix of clouds and sunshine. The high will reach 31. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of a late flurry, and the low will drop to 22. Tomorrow is set to be mostly cloudy, breezy, and milder with the high of 42. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering smart security systems to homes and businesses. Call Goldilocks at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft. So on Friday, the Supreme Court handed down its much anticipated decision in the Learning Resources cases, a case which deals with Trump's tariffs, the imposition of tariffs under the IEPA, the emergency, basically an Emergency Powers Act. We have talked about this for many, many moons with the many legal scholars that we lean on to discuss these issues on this program. And it always seemed fairly clear to me and to most of the people we talked to that President Trump was going to get reined in. It's not going to be a zero sum. The president does have some tools, statutory tools, for the imposition of tariffs. But to have, an open-ended, unchecked, basically plenary power to impose tariffs under this rolling emergency, for example, fentanyl, was unlikely to stand. I'm actually surprised, frankly, the decision was 6-3 and not 9-0. But the president was unhappy about it, even if he was unsurprised, because the administration was ready to go. And you saw U.S. Trade Rep Jamison Greer, as well as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, making the rounds on the Sunday talkies to offer reaction, but also some concrete next steps. First, the president calling those three justices, particularly Gorsuch and Coney Barrett, since they're Trump nominees, disgraceful.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country, which is right now very proud of those justices. When you read the dissenting opinions, there's no way that anyone can argue against them. There's no way. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long, that I can assure you. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They're an automatic no, just like in Congress. They're an automatic no. They're against anything that makes America strong, healthy, and great again. They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no matter how good a case you have. It's a no. But you can't knock their loyalty. It's one thing you can do with some of our people.
Disloyal. Coney Barrett and Gorsuch in particular, disloyal, disgraces to their families. Something else that he said. A bit over the top, don't you think? 312-642-5600 to give us a call or text here at Chicago's Morning Answer. Bit over the top. As was this insinuation that somehow Coney Barrett and Gorsuch in particular were compromised by foreign interests.
It's my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests and a political movement that is far smaller than people would ever think. It's a small movement. I won by millions of votes. We won in a landslide. With all the cheating that went on, there was a lot of it, but we still won in a landslide. Too big to rig. But these people are obnoxious, ignorant, and loud. They're very loud. And I think certain justices are afraid of that.
He was asked by Phil Wegman in the Q&A, Phil Wegman from RealClearPolitics.com, to whom was he referring when he talked about foreign interests and the judges being, the justices in particular. He's clearly talking about Gorsuch and Coney Barrett being intimidated by them. Who are these people they're intimidated by? Who are these foreign interests that they have been influenced by?
Thank you, Mr. President. What will you say to foreign nations who seek to renegotiate their deals? And what did you mean a moment ago when you said that the Supreme Court has been swayed by foreign interests?
Well, I think that foreign interests are represented by people that I believe have undue influence. They have a lot of influence over the Supreme Court, whether it's through fear or respect or friendships, I don't know. But I know some of the people that were involved on the other side, and I don't like them. I think they're real slime balls. And got to do what's right for the country. You got to do what's right for the Constitution. That's why I respect so much Justice Thomas and Alito, Kavanaugh, because they not only dissented, their dissent is so strong. When you read their dissent, you know, a lot of times you'll read a dissent and it's like, well, you don't know, it could go either way. There's no other way. The good news is, it's like Justice Kavanaugh said, very strongly said, you have other ways you can go. You don't have to go that way. You can go other way. There are numerous other ways you can go. And frankly, this should have been done by presidents many years ago. They allowed our country to be eaten alive. We lost 50% of our car business. We used to make cars. We made all the cars. And then Mexico came, Canada came, and Japan and Germany. But they're all coming back now. They're all coming back at record levels.
That's not really a responsive answer to an assertion like that you have Supreme Court justices that are compromised by unnamed foreign interests or political interests domestically. I think he's talking about Leonard Leo, who was tasked in President Trump's first term, you'll recall, with coming up with a list of qualified judges for Supreme Court consideration from which the president could choose. Yeah. Lewis, Southside, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Good morning, Dan. The Dark Knight, he got it wrong. It wasn't the judges. It was him. It was his messaging. He used those tariffs to stop the surge at the border. He used the tariff and he used the threat of withdrawing funding for those countries where the migrants were coming across. He didn't need the wall. he didn't need the National Guard down there. And what they got him on right now is that they changed the narrative, and he's changing with it, with this affordability. If you go affordability, they're looking at it as a tax. They're not looking at it as a national security or national defense. Hello?
Yeah, thanks for the call, Lewis. I mean, it's well, it is a tax. That's what a tariff is. But I take your point that it has multiple uses. It's not just about raising revenue or trying to reduce our trade deficit, which I think are completely unpersuasive. But the idea of using it as a cudgel to get freer trade, to lower trade barriers, to eliminate unfair trade practices. Okay. To encourage reshoring, particularly industries that do have a direct nexus to our national security interests. Okay. As well as Lewis said, to send a message that if you don't, for example, do something about the drug cartels, President Sheinbaum of Mexico, then we're going to hit you where it hurts in your pocketbook. Okay, I can see that. But there are avenues for that, statutory. And there are avenues even beyond the statutory. One of them is called Congress? Congress. Here's the thing. We were just talking about the means, the ends not justifying the means. Well, that's across the board, not just for the left. The ends don't justify the means. So, and here's something else. But Congress didn't do this and Congress didn't do that. Yeah, no, I agree. So because Congress abdicates the authority they have doesn't mean another branch of government gets to come in and usurp it. Because then the Constitution and the separation of powers isn't worth much, is it? So if you start from a premise, you know, he wants to talk about the ends he seeks, and that's fine, but the ends don't justify the means. The means still have to pass constitutional muster. And here's the rub. And I'm in the unusual position. We'll talk to Richard Epstein a little bit later in the program about this. I did read Thomas's dissent, and I can't think of another time I've disagreed with Thomas, but I do hear, and I'll see that he is a much more brilliant legal mind than little old me, but I disagree with him nonetheless. So, yeah, there's room for disagreement. In point of fact, I thought Gorsuch in his concurrence made an important point. Before we get to the impact here, I mean, the process matters. The rules of the game matter. He writes in his concurrence to Gorsuch, for those who think it's important for the nation to impose more tariffs, I understand that today's decision will be disappointing. All I can offer them is that most major decisions affecting the rights and responsibilities of the American people, including the duty to pay taxes and tariffs, are funneled through the legislative process for a reason. Yes, legislating can be hard and take time. And yes, it can be tempting to bypass Congress when some pressing problem arises. But the deliberative nature of the legislative process was the whole point of its design. Through that process, the nation can tap the combined wisdom of the people's elected representatives, such as it is, my parenthetical comment, not just that of one faction or man. Their deliberation tempers impulse, and compromise hammers disagreements into workable solutions. And because laws must earn such broad support to survive the legislative process, they tend to endure, allowing ordinary people to plan their lives in ways they cannot when the rules shift from day to day. In all, the legislative process helps ensure each of us has a stake, I should say, in the laws that govern us and the nation's future. For some today, the weight of those virtues is apparent. For others, it may not seem so obvious. But if history is any guide, the tables will turn and the day will come when those disappointed by today's result will appreciate the legislative process for the bulwark of liberty it is. I think that's pretty well stated. John in Bridgeport.
Yeah, Dan, two things. I think people are missing the point that he's just out there criticizing the sacred cow which is the Supreme Court, where many people, you can't criticize it, you can't complain about it. No, you can't. You can. And these people from legal heaven got to realize it, that they're not above being critical. Number two, he did bypass Congress to secure the border. Was he wrong in doing that? I just want your take on it. Thanks.
Well, they're apples to oranges. That's an apples to oranges comparison. In terms of the border, what he did at the border is enforce existing federal law and have the Department of Homeland Security. Have the Department of Homeland Security effectively enforce existing federal law. If he wanted to build a wall, he had to get funding for it, for example, which he did. If he wanted to hire more Border Patrol agents, he had to get funding for it, through Congress, which he did. See the difference? And criticizing the Supreme Court, yeah, of course you can criticize the Supreme Court, both in every which direction. Nobody's sacrosanct. That's not the issue. The issue is insinuating conspiracies that you can't substantiate. You see the difference there, right? Criticizing the decision on its merits, going through Gorsuch's concurrence or Thomas and Alito's dissent, and Kavanaugh, fine. Take a position, argue it. No problem. Disgrace to the, questioning patriotism, disgrace to their families, influenced by foreign interests or some unnamed political faction within conservative or GOP ranks. That's pretty cheap. You want to make an assertion like that, then make it in a detailed fashion. How's that? Ron, Southside.
I agree with you 100%. That's just ridiculous, making those accusations and name calls. But here's the thing. He said, well, it was just played. The other presidents should have been doing it. Okay, this is what John Roberts said, quote, in the fact that no president has ever found such power in IEEPA is strong evidence that it does not exist. Case closed. Have a good day, Dan.
Thanks for the call, Ron. Now, again, this is not to say that all of what has been done goes away. Hardly. And this was the point that Bessent and Jameson Greer, the U.S. trade rep, were making over the weekend. Bessent started by, calling on all countries to honor the deals in principle that we've struck because we do have these other tools.
Again, we can move to 232 and 301 tariffs, so I think that everyone is going to honor their deal. And there is the draconian alternative that Supreme Court reaffirmed that the president has. He has a right to a complete embargo. Right. Like he can just cut countries off. He can cut whole product lines off. We can't receive any money. So, I would call on all countries to honor their agreements and move forward.
Yeah, and I'll get to those sections in just a moment, but I wanted to address this argument because Trump sort of made it in his remarks as well. The idea, I can't impose a particular tariff on a particular country at a particular level under emergency powers, but I can impose a full-on embargo? How does that make sense? Shouldn't the lesser included actions be within my purview? I can do the draconian thing of stopping products from, let's just say Mexico altogether, but I can't impose a tariff? Well, you can, but not under IEEPA. That's number one. Number two, the lesser included actions argument sounds pretty persuasive, doesn't it? But it's not. Not if you understand principal agent theory. The principle here is Congress. The agent is the executive. And so what Congress is saying here, or what the IEEPA statute says, and thus Congress is saying because it was passed by Congress, they want the president to move fast in a real emergency So not wait for the deliberative process. If there's a discernible emergency that was conceived by this IEPA, this is the genesis of the law, right? But it doesn't want to hand over control of trade policy altogether. So, of course, the president says, well, I'll just declare, I'll just, broaden the interpretation of emergency beyond the original intent of Congress. Well, no, the court said. Just because you can do the most draconian thing in emergency doesn't mean you can do all these lesser included actions when there is not a colorable emergency, as distinguished from sort of the ordinary course of geopolitical existence in this complicated world. It's actually not a very good argument that the administration tried to make. But Besant here talking about these other tools the president has, and Jamieson Greer did too, and then I'll address them.
Well, the president said on Friday also that despite his anger over the decision, it made a president's ability to both regulate and impose tariffs more powerful. If that is the case, why didn't he choose that to begin with?
It mostly had to do with needing to act very quickly. The statute we were using was an emergency statute, and the president selected to use it because of the huge expanse in the trade deficit, 40% expansion under President Biden. He came in, he needed to move very quickly. He did. Trading partners came to the table right away. They opened their markets to us. We imposed tariffs. Now we're in a situation that we have these deals. We can reconstruct what we need. We can reconstruct our half of the deal with Section 301, Section 232, which are other tariff authorities with clear designations of authority that we can put in place and keep for as long as needed to resolve the problems that we discover.
That was the trade rep, Jamieson Greer, on with Martha Raddatz on This Week. So Section 232. 1962 Trade Expansion Act. Section 262 allows for the Commerce Department, so that would be Lutnick, to do an investigation. So there's a bit of a process. Commerce Department does an investigation to deem whether or not a particular proposed tariff on a particularly proposed good or goods is can be and should be properly seen as in America's national security interests. So think, just for example, steel or rare earths, those sorts of things. So Commerce Department can do a study, can so decree that this is consistent with acting in America's national security interests, and the president can use that section of that federal statute. Section 301 is of the 1974 Trade Act, and that deals with unfair trade practices. So here again, the U.S. Trade Rep's office can do a similar investigation, Commerce Department, but with the eye towards unfair trade practices, defined unfair trade practices. And some of this is dubious if you're a classical liberal, economics devotee as I am, but just in terms of how it actually works, so if they're dumping products, they have unfair trade restrictions on American products and so forth. The U.S. Trade Rep's office, Jamieson Greer, can so decree that this proposed tariff is in response to unfair trade practices by country X as opposed to product Y or products, X, Y, and Z, and can impose a tariff there. There's also Section 122, which was mentioned over the weekend. And this is what Trump did when he announced he was imposing first a 10, then a 15% global tariff on all imports entering the United States. So he announced 10% on Friday, then he bumped it to 15%. This is, again, under Section 122, the Trade Act of 1974, the same one as with respect to unfair trade practices. The provision has never been used for tariffs, but it allows the president to impose tariffs up to 15% for as long as 150 days to address problems caused by persistent trade deficits, which a trade deficit is not a problem, but I digress. This is what the federal law allows, and so this is what the president did. And So it gives him time, as Bessent was saying, as Greer was saying, to reconstitute deals that were already in place, gives him tools, I should say, that take time, but to reconstitute deals that are already in place through these various sections in two important federal statutes. So he is not without power, but there is process. And the power, ultimately, when it comes to trade policy and the imposition of tariffs, is shared because, as we know, basic stuff, tax and spend bills originate in the House. And I understand Roberts doesn't come to the table with clean hands here, somebody who declared an individual mandate in Obamacare a tax. That was what Roberts did in the Obamacare case, was unconstitutional and an affront to the Constitution. That was actually a disgraceful decision. I'm not saying he's a disgraceful person, but that was a disgraceful decision, and he knows it. That was intervening on behalf of both the executive and the legislative branches to characterize what they did as something they didn't characterize, as different than how they actually characterize it. That was awful. But this is not that. All right, let's check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 21 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stacey Keene in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Governor J.B. Pritzker says President Donald Trump owes the families of Illinois and the United States about $2,000 per household for the illegal tariffs that he imposed. Pritzker's comments came after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on Friday that the power to levy taxes and duties on Americans rests solely with Congress. The Liberty Justice Center says the ruling confirms that the president cannot invoke emergency powers to unilaterally set tariffs. And the deal may not be done yet, but the Chicago Park District is already making plans to renovate Soldier Field once the Chicago Bears are gone. The Park District says they're working on plans to turn the stadium into a world-class concert and event space. At a proposed cost of $630 million, that plan includes $130 million in direct stadium renovations and $500 million in infrastructure improvements. Officials with the Parks District say if the Bears break their lease, they would owe about $90 million, which would help to offset some of those renovation costs. This report is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
This November, Illinois voters will have the chance to fire Governor J.B. Pritzker and replace Dick Durbin in the U.S. Senate. Don't miss AM 560's Republican debate on Thursday, February 26th, as candidates for governor and the Senate will debate. Hear the debate live, starting at 7 p.m. right here on AM 560. Or watch it live on the AM 560 YouTube channel and Facebook page. It's the 2026 Republican debate, exclusively on AM 560. The Answer.
If you're over 65 and struggling with knee pain, Joint Relief Institute offers a guaranteed way to treat it. It's non-surgical and often covered by Medicare and private insurance. It's JRI's Joint Arthritis Treatment, knee lubrication placement that's so accurate, it's 100% guaranteed and can relieve your knee and shoulder pain in 10 minutes or less. Book your risk-free consultation today and get back to walking, golfing, pickleball to cycling without pain or medication. Call 708-315-6800. Meet the provider, get an x-ray and joint consultation. Why wait? JRI has treated over 30,000 Chicagoans and performed over 400,000 procedures. You could be next. Over 5,000 five-star Google reviews can't be wrong.
Stop living in pain. Call the Joint Relief Institute today, 708-315-6800, or visit jointreliefinstitute.com. Locations in Glenview, Oak Brook, and Orland Park. That's 708-315-6800 for the Joint Relief Institute. Medicare and most private insurance plans accepted.
Did you know a will alone does not keep your family out of court when you die? The court still has to approve your will, but get a living trust, and your estate can be settled clearly without issue. Talk to the attorneys at Naumann & Associates. They prepare wills and trusts for a flat fee, no surprises, no hourly rate. With decades of experience, they know the law and offer a free consultation. Contact Naumann & Associates in Elk Grove Village, nalawgroup.com. Call 847-593-8777.
40,000 people. That's enough to pack Wrigley Field. I'm talking about 40,000 people who realized hip and knee surgery wasn't their only option. There has to be another way. Guess what? There is. They found it at QC Kinetics, an alternative to surgery. I know this because I've met these patients. They are moving better and hurting less thanks to QC Kinetics' advanced regenerative treatments. Surgery isn't always the answer. Do your research and talk with my friends at QC Kinetics. They offer natural treatments backed by real science. They will activate your body's natural healing power. Safe, natural, non-surgical. Osteoarthritis only gets worse, so don't wait. Get started this month. 40,000 people can't be wrong. Before you choose surgery, talk with QC Kinetics and tell them Dan Prof sent you. That's me. Call today, 312-827-6261. That's 312-827-6261. Once more, call QC Kinetics, 312-827-6261.
Did you know most remodeling mishaps start before construction even begins? Here's something else you should know. At Forever Remodeling, we do things differently. Every kitchen, bathroom, and basement project starts with smart planning, detailed 3D designs, a clear scope of work, and accurate pricing, all sorted out before you get started. No surprises, no stress, just beautiful results, done right the first time. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, EVER, remodeling.com. And schedule your free in-home consultation today.
Hair Volume from New Nordic will make your hair look thick and healthy. Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and newnordicusa.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. Still looking pretty good on the Edens. It's just 15 minutes both ways from Lake Cook to Montrose, but the eastbound Jane Addams and the southbound Tri-State really slow on the ramps to get onto the Kennedy O'Hare extension. We've got 18 minutes inbound on the Kennedy from O'Hare to the Byrne interchange. Outbound is 24 minutes. We're looking at a good ride on the Ike right now, just 14 minutes both ways from Wolf to the old post office. 24 minutes inbound on the Stevenson from Veterans Memorial to Lakeshore. Outbound is 22. 17 in on the Dan Ryan from 95th to the Byrne interchange. Outbound is 11. A little bit sluggish in the inbound express lanes approaching the Stevenson, and the Bishop Ford inbound slows down from 103rd Street to the Dan Ryan. This report is sponsored by Mattress Firm. Score major deals on top brands at Mattress Firm's President's Day sale. Find your dream mattress today. Their sleep experts are highly trained to find the right one to fit your unique needs. They make sleep easy. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect a breezy morning followed by chilly conditions with a mix of clouds and sunshine. The high will reach 31 degrees. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of a late flurry, and temperatures will drop to a low of 22. Tomorrow is forecasted to be mostly cloudy, breezy, and milder with a high of 42 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Be a part of AM 560's Republican debate on Thursday, February 26th at Benedictine University in Lisle. Get your free tickets today at 560theanswer.com/debate.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. We return to ERO activity, enforcement and removal operations. Got to talk about it because much like during the Summer of Love with the Black Lives Matter affiliated rioting and looting and anarchy, you have the Neo-Marxist Party again aligning itself against law enforcement. And that needs to be central to the discussion this election year as well. Platforming violence as the means to political ends and taking a hostile position to law enforcement. The Juliana Stratton F. Trump ad, I mean, it's, you know, the F. Trump results in the lead being buried, but the lead is she's calling for the abolishing of ICE. And she's hardly the only one. Defund the police was the Summer of Love. Abolish ICE, which it's always been their position. It's just when do they feel like they can be forthright about it, as opposed to soft pedaling it by talking about whole of government approaches and social workers for mental health calls, you know, dividing up the emergency response labor and so forth. The whole thing is anti-rule of law. They are Hobbesian might makes right, that cast themselves as the downtrodden, fighting against the establishment, fighting against the overarching state. No. Our state is trying to gain control of the machinery of the state to impose, and I mean impose, their will. And eliminate any impediments to that imposition. You just see it play out over and over again. And it's not lost on law enforcement personnel in blue states. I mean, hell, we had 100 county state's attorneys of 102 oppose Pritzker's purge law. I mean, I can't think of a sheriff that supported it. You think the sheriffs and local police, for the most part, are on board with being at odds with their federal law enforcement brothers and sisters? You think they want to work together, or do you think they want to be positioned as antagonists? And could this be any more straightforward? In Maryland, that's a blue state, the sheriffs in 9 counties in Maryland had 287G agreements with ICE. The 287G models, the jail enforcement model, designed to identify and process removable aliens with criminal or pending criminal charges who are arrested by state or local law enforcement agencies. Do it through the jails. It's safer for anybody. Tom Homan has been saying this for years and continues to. The task force model serve as a force multiplier for law enforcement agencies to enforce limited immigration authority with ICE oversight during their routine policy, the routine police duties. The Warrant Service Officer Program allows ICE to train, certify, and authorize state and local enforcement officers to serve and execute administrative warrants on aliens in their agency's jail. Well, these 287G agreements that provide for constructive engagement between federal, state, and local, those can't stand. Those can't stand. Not in a blue state. Not with a governor named Wes Moore, who has his eyes on a presidential run, just like our own Jelly Belly here. Mike Lewis is the sheriff of Wacomico County. He had this to say about the legislature and the governor, Wes Moore, rescinding these 287G agreements that county sheriff's departments had with ICE.
The abolishment of the 287G program is not the abolishment of ICE. They're going nowhere. In fact, they're going to intensify their efforts. We warned them this was going to happen, and it's going to happen.
A warning on Wednesday, issued by sheriffs from the 9 Maryland counties forced to end active partnerships with ICE under a new state law.
It is the biggest betrayal to law enforcement and public safety that I have ever seen.
There will be people missed. And that is my concern. There'll be people missed and who will be re-released into our communities who pose a threat.
The legislation, signed by the governor Tuesday, abolishes 287G agreements with ICE.
Mark my word, you will see a dramatic increase in the presence of ICE in this state.
Exactly, which is what they want, Sheriff. That's what Wes Moore wants. He wants his Tim Walz moment. He wants his J.B. Pritzker moment. Come to our state so we can demagogue you, so we can unleash our paid agitators, professional victims, to chase you around with whistles, filming it to show how heroic they are, aiding and abetting the escape of violent criminals. Oh, who are going to be released too, to victimize more people. Again and again, just like we do with our repeat violent offenders who are domestics. We'll do it with our repeat violent offenders who are illegals. Why not? We want the chaos. Sheriff, don't you understand? We want the confrontations. Otherwise, how do we demonize ICE if everything is nice and tidy and peaceful and cooperative? Well, that's not the narrative that we're spinning. 312-642-5600. In Detroit, 2 police officers have been suspended. The chief wanted him fired for calling Border Patrol to help with identifying someone that the cops in Detroit couldn't otherwise identify. Here's that story.
Earlier this week, you might remember Detroit Police Chief Todd Bettison. He called for the firing of both a sergeant and an officer for calling Border Patrol during 2 separate traffic stops the last couple of months. And we did just learn tonight that both the sergeant and officer have been suspended without pay for 30 days. Chief Todd Bettison made the ask this week, and the Police Board of Commissioners voted to suspend Sergeant Denise Wallet without pay for 30 days, the same fate for an officer. In Sergeant Wallet's case, she was called to the scene to handle a language barrier with a person in question. Then, according to Bettison, she called Border Patrol for translation help. Border Patrol responded and detained the person. It says right here in DPD's policy, you can't do that.
At no point in time did she contact them for translation purposes. Absolutely no policy was violated whatsoever.
Her attorney, Solomon Radner, says a separate officer there was handling translation. Sergeant Wallet called Border Patrol to help identify the person after a fingerprint scanner didn't work.
And at some point, she called her lieutenant and said, "What do I do? We can't identify this man. What do I do?" And the lieutenant, knowing the policy and following the policy, told her, "Call Border Patrol."
Attorney Radner says it's not against policy to call Border Patrol to help identify people. Former Detroit Police Chief Ralph Godby talking historical context of DPD Border Patrol relations.
It is not routine for Detroit police officers to call Border Patrol to make identification of any individual.
A federal lawsuit against DPD is in the works, claiming the sergeant's due process was violated, and her union will undoubtedly fight it too.
But if you just look at that policy violation alone, I don't see an arbitrator in the state of Michigan that would uphold a termination. So that's a bit performative, and I think it's disingenuous, and I don't think that's the chief's intent.
Well, what is the chief's intent then, former chief? Well, then why is he doing it? Because he has to, preen before the cameras and take the same position as the civilian political power structure, too. Otherwise, what happens to me? Calling for termination if you know it's not a terminable offense, policy violation. Apparently, it's a debatable policy violation. And that's not really even the point, is it? The point is, it's part of the point. Whether or not it's a policy violation, I don't know. Seems to be disagreement there between the attorney and the former chief. But regardless, the larger issue is how can it be sensible to punish local law enforcement for leaning and working with federal law enforcement to the same ends of public safety? That's a policy violation? Do you think maybe the policy should be re-examined if it's pitting local law enforcement trying to lean on federal law enforcement intel to identify a suspect? This is where things are at. And they want them this way. They want them this way. And by the way, the cases just get more and more wild in terms of the extent of this all. You think the Iowa school superintendent who is an illegal, you think that was jarring? The Hanover Park cop, illegal? Think that's a bit surprising? DHS announced the ICE arrest of a Liberian illegal alien who was working as a Minnesota corrections officer while also being AWOL from the Pennsylvania National Guard. Pennsylvania National Guard, AWOL, Minnesota corrections officer, apparently his current day job, an illegal from Liberia. He has no legal status in the United States. He was identified, 45-year-old Morris Brown, identified as part of the major operation into Minnesota investigating investigating aliens involved in fraud, which is ongoing, as Tom Homan said. They may have reduced the footprint of ICE agents, but those that are on the ground investigating the systemic fraud up there have not gone anywhere. He also is alleged to have committed marriage fraud and made repeated false claims to U.S. immigration authorities. Maybe he should run for Congress in Minnesota. Meanwhile, speaking of Minnesota and fraud, the Somali community is totally aligned with Field Marshal Tim and Pajamas Boy Jake Fry in terms of demanding compensation from the federal government for the costs imposed by ICE. Boy, they must have been watching some of the domestic race hustle. They've learned well. You've learned well, young grasshoppers.
We have suffering sons starting for ICE. We wanna whoever bring over here, we wanna they pay. Only that's what I'm saying. And I'm asking our governor and our state. We are taxpayer. We need pay back whatever they committed ICE. Thank you very much. Woo.
Sure. You understood what she said? Good for you.
Police program fits into our criteria of small business owners, not those who make 200,000 and above. We don't make that much amount. We have been suffering since the crisis of ICE. We also demand an immediate help to evictions so families are not pushed to homelessness during the crisis. Our community deserves accountability. Our community deserves safety. We need also justice for those who lost their lives defending the community.
Reparations, eviction moratorium, anything else? Justice for those who lost their lives defending the community. Who are those people? J.D. Vance did a sit-down, Shannon Bream, in part previewing tomorrow night's State of the Union address. But as to the matter of that Somali honky neo-Marxist collaborative up there in Minnesota demanding reparations from the federal government?
I, on behalf of the American people, would like reparations from them for allowing Somali fraudsters to steal billions of dollars from the American taxpayer that live in Minnesota. They've done nothing to cut down on that fraud. So I think it's absurd for people to say, we want reparations. Reparations for what? Because we enforce the law that the American people elected us to do?
For the reparation, for the pain that you're giving me. It's literally, this could be a Jerky Boys sketch. These Somali women demanding reparations. I thought it was at first until I actually saw a video of the little press confab that they put together. Oh, and meanwhile, on this matter of CDL licenses and people in this country illegally driving semis that they don't apparently know how to operate, killing people in the process. Bill Malugin reporting for Fox News. Per multiple federal sources, a semi-truck driver arrested yesterday after allegedly running a red light in Hendricks County, Indiana, here Indiana again, crashing into another driver and killing him. Indian illegal alien, there we go again, caught and released at the border in 2018 by the first Trump administration, apparently a minor at the time. He received a CDL from Indiana in May of 2025. He's now in ICE custody. And the point here is to say that when you open the border and allow 10 million people in, and even though this occurred in the Trump administration too, look, there are gaps. Nothing is 100%, even if you're taking all the necessary or all the right steps to try to ensure that people cannot break into this country. And you're certainly not inviting them in the way that Biden did. The same thing with giving him a CDL in Indiana. You have to dig into that and find out how that happened if he was otherwise unqualified, if he otherwise couldn't pass the test. I mean, red state governments are not inviolate when it comes to corruption or incompetence. It's still government. The effort is a little bit different. The intentions clearly are different. But this is, a week after the illegal from Kyrgyzstan killed those 4 Amish gentlemen and critically injured the driver in a crash there. And yet we have 1 in 5 non-domiciled CDL licenses, according to the Department of Transportation, that are illicit. 1 in 5 non-domiciled CDLs in Illinois that are illicit. LEG, duh, LEG. Where is that failed mob banker? Oh, he's navel-gazing at East Bank Club, I suppose, right now. Anybody want to, wake him up? We also find that LEG has received more than $300,000 in donations from the trucking industry in recent years. Huh. Be interested to go through those particular donors and the incidents of drivers at their businesses who have CDLs that are illegitimate, wouldn't it? I know. LEG is very much like Blago. He always wanted to be like a polished kingpin. That's what he still aspires to be. But what he really is, just like Blago was, is a street-level jamoke. Problem with street-level jamokes in positions of authority is they get people killed. Dan Proft, Chicago's Morning Answer.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
There's nothing wrong with flying first class. Of course, everybody's got that cheapskate uncle that always says the back of the plane lands at the same time as the front of the plane. I guess there's some sort of cheapskate logic in that. However, the door is in the front of the plane. So why not get to first class? After all, they have dishes, silverware, glasses, warm towels. And if you want to sit at first class, or you aspire to, all you need is a little planning from Alpha Wealth Group. Their goal is to help maximize your income in retirement. Since you can't take it with you, there's no point in squandering your time. After all, the warm towels make the ride fun. Call Tom Fortino and Alpha Wealth Group for their complimentary roadmap to retirement, so you can take a first-class flight and not worry about the cost. Call 630-864-6711. That number again, 630-864-6711. 630-864-6711 or online at alphawealthgroup.com.
If stairs in your home are becoming difficult, there's a practical solution, and it doesn't have to come with pushy salespeople. Access provides dependable stair lifts designed to help you stay safely in the home you love. No gimmicks, no overselling, just honest guidance, quality equipment, and professional local installation. We'll explain your options, work within your budget, and let you decide what's right at your pace. For a straightforward, no-pressure, free in-home consultation, call 630-616-6249 or visit allaboutaccess.com.
Hey, it's Mike Gallagher, hoping you'll join me on the unforgettable Gulf of America cruise happening in November of 2026. Imagine this: turquoise waters, white sand beaches, incredible food, insightful conversations about the future of America. Scott Jennings and I will be your hosts. We'll dive into the issues shaping America as we cruise through some of the most stunning destinations while honoring the 250th anniversary of our nation. Book your cabin today. Text the word cruise to 94878. Text cruise to 94878 or visit mikeonline.com.
News, opinion, insight. This is AM 560, The Answer. WIND, Chicago. Streaming at 560theanswer.com on the AM 560 mobile app or tell your smart speaker to play The Answer Chicago.
Millions of Americans are stuck inside riding a storm out. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
The snow is really coming down, and those snowfall totals continue to pile up. We are going to surpass 2 feet before this is all said and done, at least in some locations.
Fox meteorologist Adam Klotz. It's a blizzard from parts of Delaware to Maine with almost hurricane-force wind gusts.
Here in Boston, we're expecting anywhere from 1 to 2 feet of a heavy, wet snow to fall, and that is going to be coupled with some strong winds. Across the state, we're expecting anywhere from 50 to 75 mile-per-hour wind gusts, and when you put those things together, it is just going to to exacerbate our issues with power outages, which just continue to grow this morning.
Fox Weather's Melanie Black. Massachusetts has the most power outages so far, well over 100,000. There are about 500,000 homes and businesses without electricity. Virginia and Maryland on up. And while people are staying off the roads, the travel issues spread far beyond. Flights to and from the Northeast grounded.
Here in the nation's capital, the problem is no different. Hundreds of flights already just today. New York and Boston are much worse. New York airports just this morning experiencing thousands of cancellations. Boston looking just as bad.
Fox Business Network's Connor Hansen at Washington's Reagan National. The Secret Service is investigating the breach at the Trump Mar-a-Lago, Florida estate, where the North Carolina man showed up with a gas can and a shotgun, which the Palm Beach sheriff says Austin Martin raised toward a deputy and agents, and then he was shot and killed.
Martin was reported missing by his family yesterday at 1:38 in the morning. The timing of this report from his relative is notable because, according to authorities, Martin entered Mar-a-Lago at 1:30 a.m. What communication his family had with him or knowledge about his plans is still unclear. His cousin told the Associated Press that Martin's behavior was shocking, that he came from a family of avid Trump supporters and was even afraid of guns.
Fox's Dana Marie McNichol in West Palm Beach. President Trump was not there at the time. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 20 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560, The Answer. I'm Stace Keen in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Flights from Chicago to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico have been halted following the death of a cartel leader on Sunday. Mexican authorities announced the death of the man who led the Jalisco New Generation cartel, known as El Mencho. He was said to have been responsible for trafficking large amounts of fentanyl and other drugs into the U.S. As news of El Mencho's death spread, violence broke out throughout the tourist area, including the airport. As such, several flights from Chicago to cities in Mexico were diverted or even canceled yesterday. Resorts in Puerto Vallarta have been placed into lockdown as news spread of cartel members looking to take American hostages in retaliation for El Mencho's death. If you have plans to fly to Mexico in the coming days, you're advised to check with your airline regarding possible changes to your flight. And the deal isn't done yet, but Chicago Park District is already making plans to renovate Soldier Field once the Chicago Bears are gone. According to a statement, the Parks District is working on plans to turn that stadium into a world-class concert and event space. At a proposed cost of $630 million, the plan would include $100 million in direct stadium renovations, which would include a new sound system, new dressing rooms, and then $500 million in infrastructure improvements. Officials with the Parks District say if the Bears break their lease, they would owe about $90 million, which would help to offset some of those renovation costs. The city of Chicago still owes about $500 million from the 2003 stadium renovation, costs that are being paid for by the 2% hotel tax. Officials say those funds would increase with the new stadium renovations. This report is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Larry Elder compares the numbers.
And then you get this. Well, Obama deported people on the border, so they were really just returns. That's not true either. If you add up the people that Obama deported on the border, and he did, then his total deportations are not 3 million, they're 5 million, which means Obama deported a bunch of people, not at the border, but in the interior, just as Trump is doing right now.
The Larry Elder Show, weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-555-2085. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Providers help thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-555-2085. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-555-2085. 2085. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-555-2085. 800-555-2085.
So when our parents were moving from the farm to town when they retired, all these old pieces had to go somewhere because they were getting a smaller place. So we each got some furniture.
Ben and Arvid Huth from Penny Mustard Furnishings.
There was one piece that still had our grandmother's name on it. It was the delivery ticket, basically. It was on the back of the piece, written with lead pencil. And instead of an address, it just said her name, Boyd, Wisconsin. That was the delivery address.
Then that's all you needed for an address.
Yeah.
That was the piece of furniture that all five of us kids wanted. You know, of all the furniture that had grandma's name on it.
Today, I tell people that ask me, like, okay, I bought this piece of heirloom furniture. Is there anything special I should do with it? Flip it over, turn it around, take a magic marker, and write on that thing your name, when you bought this, where you bought it from, why you bought it. That piece will be cherished in your family for centuries to come.
People want to be connected to their ancestors a little bit, and this is one way of doing that.
And the furniture we're building today, 300 years from now, somebody's going to be like, wow, that thing was well built for its time.
PennyMustard.com.
If you owe back taxes, listen carefully to rule number 1. Never go up against the IRS alone. They're cracking down, freezing bank accounts, garnishing paychecks, canceling passports. Even your home or business could be at risk. But here's what they don't tell you. The IRS has powerful tax relief programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. That's why smart people call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. Nobody knows these programs like the experts at Optima. Their team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $2 billion in tax debt for people just like you. The IRS is not stopping, so don't wait, and don't take them on alone. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima today for a free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. 16 in, 15 out on the Edens from Lake Cook to Montrose. The Kennedy inbound from O'Hare to the Burnt Interchange is 27 minutes, 25 on the reverse side. You've got 24 in, 18 out on the Ike from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 35 in on the Stevenson. From Veterans Memorial to Lakeshore, it's 25 minutes on the outbound side, and getting slow on the Dan Ryan inbound from 95th to the Burnt Interchange, 23 minutes, outbound is 12. You're also stop and go on I-57 inbound between Halstead Street and the Dan Ryan, and the northbound side of Lakeshore Drive slows down between Bryn Mawr Avenue and Hollywood Avenue. This report is a service of Team Hochberg. They've helped thousands of AM 560 listeners with the best rates and service. Let Team Hochberg help you by visiting 56david.com or call 855-563-2843. That's 56david.com, Atlantic Coast Mortgage Equal Housing Lender. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect a breezy morning followed by chilly conditions with a mix of clouds and sunshine. The high will reach 31 degrees. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of a late flurry, and temperatures will drop to a low of 22. Tomorrow is forecasted to be mostly cloudy, breezy, and milder with a high of 42 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So Trump put the Iranians on a 15-day clock as he scrambled the USS Ford and all sorts of assets to the Middle East in a fairly prodigious show of force. The Iranian Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, went on Morning Joe because he had some propaganda to offer that he knew wouldn't get much pushback. So he got it out, saying there is no military solution to the Iranian nuclear program. What Iranian nuclear program, one might ask. But anyway, here's what he said.
Well, we had a very good talks
a few days ago in Geneva, and we were able to discuss the questions related to our nuclear program and to the U.S. sanctions. And we agreed on a set of principles or guiding principles for our negotiation and how a deal can look like. And we then were asked to prepare a draft of a possible deal. So next time that we meet, we can, go into that draft, start negotiating about its language, and hopefully come to a conclusion. That is the way ahead of us, and I think that is a normal way of any international negotiations, and we agreed to go into that path. One thing I have to emphasize is that there is no military solution for Iran's nuclear program. That has been tested last year, and there were a huge attack on our facilities, on our, they killed and assassinated our scientists, but they couldn't kill our nuclear program. Why? Because it is developed by ourselves, by our scientists. This is a technology developed by us, belongs to us. And it cannot be destroyed by bombings, militarily. The only solution is diplomacy. This is why the U.S. is back.
Well, you can have technological capacity, but when you try to implement it, it gets blown up. Then that's not really a viable program, is it? If it maintains it, if it stays in an inert phase, then I don't know what kind of nuclear program you have. And I guess fronting that you have one is provocative. It doesn't really speak to diplomacy given the previous experience, right? So it's an interesting representation that Mr. Arrigacci made. For more on this, please be joined by Stephen Bucci, who served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us, as always. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I have to say, I think the foreign minister might be a little more believable if at the same time there weren't other leaders in the country back, death to America, death to the great Satan and the little Satan. It's like, okay, how many times can you guys talk out of both sides of your face?
Well, that's just a little. That's just a little.
Problem for them.
Yeah, that's just a little gamesmanship in advance of substantive diplomatic talks. Sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I think they're going to find that Donald Trump and the team that he sends to this they're not talking to John Kerry anymore. They need to understand that, and they have bent a little bit. They're no, we want to make a business deal with you. You can make lots of money with us.
Yeah.
We don't want a problem. We just want to do business. No, they do not, and they think that will trick President Trump, and I just don't think it will.
Well, what's the play to represent like they have a viable nuclear program? Number one, do they? And if they don't, then what's Arrigacci doing there?
Personally, I do not think they have one right now, but they're trying to reconstitute it. And that's why, we told them before, okay, we knocked this down. If you try and put it back together, we'll be back. And they, are trying to put it back together. I think the intelligence we're getting is valid. It is the human intelligence is largely from the Israelis, but we have corroborating other ints out there that are telling us, hey, it's time to move again, and they're not willing to back down. So if they don't, they'll have to be knocked back.
So do you think we're going to play whack-a-mole, basically?
No, I think you're going to see different kinds of strikes. You'll see more targeted strikes against nuclear and ballistic missile-related facilities. but I think you'll also see strikes against the IRGC Quds Force headquarters and their barracks, and we're going to, I believe, try and take that pin out from under them, which is their biggest regime protection method, is the repressive power of the IRGC. I think that one's on the table this time, not just the leader of it, but the entire organization is going to get hit. And I don't think they'll be able to survive that.
So you think that, I mean, the strike is coming, and if they're on a 15-day clock, maybe that means they're actually on a 7-day clock.
I'm more inclined to the 7 to 10 day limit. I don't think President Trump is going to get fobbed along for 50 days. I think that's delusional.
And this is ultimately, I mean, is the philosophy of the administration, do you think, as with Venezuela, look, you know, the previous regimes in America, previous presidents like Biden and Obama, you know, they were not America firsters. They didn't believe in American exceptionalism. We're just another nation in the community of nations, too polite, no real commitment to dealing with malevolent forces in this world that are directly at odds with America's security and economic interests, and a little bit of elbow grease, and we can take these regimes out, whether it's Venezuela or Tehran. We did it in Caracas. We can do it in Tehran.
I think the form will probably be different. You know, going in and arresting Maduro, that was one thing.
Yeah.
And now everybody else is going, no, we're happy to make a deal with you. Don't worry. But with the mullahs, I think you're going to have to set the conditions so the Iranian people can drive them out of power. And I think if we hit the Quds Force hard, I think that will be the tipping point, because I think there's a lot of police and military that once the Quds Force is done, they will go, you know what, we really didn't like these guys anyway. We'll go with you, people in the street. And I think that's when this house of cards will fall.
Speaking of which, we're 6 weeks removed from deposing Maduro in Venezuela. What is the state of play there?
They're working the whole oil issue. You know, we're controlling the oil. We're saying, no, you're not sending any to Cuba anymore. You know, things like that. To my knowledge, we've not made a great deal of progress as far as determining who is going to be the long-term rulers of Venezuela. It's not America. We don't want to rule Venezuela, but we want people in there that are not going to be criminals. So we're still moving in that direction. I'm pretty sure that Secretary Rubio's got his eye on the ball there and is making sure that that's moving in the right direction, or I think we'd be hearing a lot more about it.
And ultimately, I mean, the play would still be to settle whatever needs to be settled, starting with, by the way, the full release of those political prisoners, which I don't believe has happened yet. There are still 600 or 700 that are languishing in prisons in Caracas that should be freed, from my understanding. But you're really trying to set the conditions for an election and for self-determination by the Venezuelan people, aren't you?
Exactly. That's the goal. That is easier to do in Venezuela than it would be to do fully in Iran, because the Venezuelans, even though they haven't had a true free election in a long time, they have the infrastructure for elections set up. They've used them before. All we need to do is get the right people in place who are willing to conduct the elections correctly, and then I think you'll see the will of the Venezuelan people played out. We'd like to see that in Iran as well, but I think there's a little more to be done there because of the depth of the repression that the mullahs and their minions have had on that country for way longer than the Venezuelans have had the problem.
Our neighbor to the south, Mexican military took out El Mencho which means the Mencho. Actually, it means Lord of the Roosters, if you're scoring at home. He's the leader of the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generacion, the biggest, baddest cartel in Mexico, I understand it now. He was taken out. The U.S. had a $15 million bounty on him. Taken out by military there, and now violence has ensued, including flights canceled to Puerto Vallarta because that region is, engulfed in flames and violence. But arguments made that the U.S. military, the Mexican military, which knew where El Mencho was the entire time, that they decided to move on him essentially under pressure from the United States and the Trump administration.
Yeah, that seems to be what the indicators show, that we didn't do it, but we were pushing the Mexicans to, hey, look, you got to take action. This is getting ridiculous. Unfortunately, this is the bad result. That those cartels are very heavily armed, very large in numbers. They've got little mini armies down there that can fight like heck. And while they're not religious fanatics like we see in Iran and places like that, they are wildly loyal to their cartels and are willing to do horrific things in their name. So this is going to be a tough fight. But, I think it's one the Mexicans need to understand. They need to engage in, because their country has just been completely corrupted by the cartels in their midst. And they've got to get back to being a real government. They have not been that in a long time.
But the reality is, they regenerate, right? El Chapo goes down, El Mencho goes down. It's next one up. That doesn't decapitate effectively that cartel.
No, not in and of itself. It's a good place to start. There is some disruption when the leader of an organization like that is taken out. But if you don't follow it up with then attacking the next couple of levels who are all aspiring to be the next El Guapo, whatever they want to have, you gotta continue the action. Just killing the top guy is not anywhere near enough.
Now, last week, you made some representations that AOC didn't maybe have the foreign policy chops to be the president of the United States, and she has responded to you on that score, and I want you to hear her response and give you an opportunity to respond.
If you think that I don't understand foreign policy because out of hours of discourse about international affairs, I pause to think about one of the most sensitive geopolitical issues that currently exist on Earth, I'm afraid the issue is not my understanding, but rather the problem is perhaps you've gotten adjusted to a president that never thinks before he speaks.
Stephen, would you like to apologize?
No, not particularly. Look,
she's hoarse. She's hoarse from talking so much about the intricacies of Far Eastern geopolitics.
Yeah, and at the same time, she doesn't know that Venezuela is not south of the equator.
Details.
Details. She's just. I'm sorry, she is not anywhere near as bright as she thinks she is, and. On top of that, if you're going to the Munich Security Conference where you're going to talk about foreign policy issues, would you not have brushed up and had answers at least framed in your mind for all of the major foreign policy issues that challenge America and its European allies? She seemed completely surprised when they asked her questions about things. Did they think they were just going to be like, Democrat Party events here where everybody just slaps themselves on the back and says "Orange Man bad" and applauds? I don't know. But if that was her audition to run for president, I would save her money on the campaign because I don't think it's going to be worth the investment.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow and the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you as always.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and I'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Yes, sir. And Stephen joined us in Chicago's Morning Answer.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. On AM 560, The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Anthony and John here from Bionic Auto Parts, proud clients of Signature Bank. We deliver high-quality, recycled and remanufactured auto parts to Chicago and Milwaukee. Our mission is simple: provide parts safely, reliably, with great customer satisfaction.
We process over 350 vehicles a month. With big banks, everything took forever. Layers of approvals and endless delays. At Signature Bank, one call got it done. Whether it's lending, deposits, or treasury management, they deliver fast. Signature Bank made us feel like family. That's a partnership we deeply appreciate.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature Bank can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature Bank at 773-467-5600 or visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Safety. It's so important at your industrial facility. You need to keep your personnel safe and meet OSHA requirements. One problem with your ladders, platforms, or safety guards, and you could be facing costly fines. Vans Industrial helps you meet OSHA standards to keep your employees safe.
Hi, I'm Dave Van Camp, president of Vans Industrial. As a business owner, I realize the importance of keeping my employees safe, and I'm here to offer my expertise. Vans Industrial is a specialty contractor uniquely equipped to design, fabricate, and install safety equipment, including walkways, handrails, stairways, and machinery guards. Our Vans Industrial team can inspect existing systems, engineer solutions, fabricate quality goods, and install them with trained pros, all making a safer environment for your employees.
Call 833-VANS-IND for a free inspection of your facility. Interested in what else they do? Visit vansindustrial.com. That's VANS Industrial.com. Quality craftsmanship since 1964.
At Terra Vista of Oak Brook Terrace, dementia care isn't just what we do, it's all we do. We specialize in caring for those with Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. We're on the forefront of dementia care with a barrier-free, stress-free environment, so residents can explore safely and feel at home. But what truly sets Terra Vista apart? Personalized care. We take the time to learn each resident's story, where they lived, their routines, former careers, even the names of family members. Anyone who interacts with your loved one can immediately make them feel comfortable and understood. We meet our residents right where they are. Residents stay strong and engaged with multi-sensory activities, music, art, horticulture, our beautiful 18,000 square foot outdoor space, and even a personal trainer. At Terra Vista, residents aren't defined by their dementia. We honor the whole person. Speak to an advisor or schedule a tour today at terravista.org. Again, that's terravista.org, and tell them AM 560 sent you.
Well, the experts did their best with this season's flu vaccine, but the virus mutated and the vaccine could not keep up. But here is the truth. The most powerful defense against viruses isn't something man-made. It is the God-given immune system that you were born with. And the best immune system booster that I, Scott Jennings, know of is Virago. Virago. It is a liquid immune enhancement supplement featuring 23 potent nutraceuticals working synergistically to enhance your immune system against assaults. Trust the design that God gave you and strengthen your body's immune system with Virago, the ultimate immune enhancement cocktail. Order it online today. Visit myvirago.com. That's myvirago.com. Use coupon code Jennings to save 30%. Myvirago.com. Coupon code Jennings saves you 30%.
Wesley is a truck driver.
I drive a truck, and I love what I do.
A truck driver with IRS troubles.
They told me I owed them $43,000.
It got really bad.
Quite a few letters in the mail. They were talking about wage garnishment coming after my house, my car. Yeah, they don't play around. I seriously thought that I was going to lose everything.
One sleepless night, Wesley finally made a call to Optima Tax Relief at 2 a.m.
Kind of figured I'd get a machine, but I didn't. I actually got to talk to an actual person in the middle of the night.
He found just what he was looking for.
Oh, they were great people. You need a team of people that know what they're doing. Optima Tax, they know what they're doing.
Optima Tax Relief came through with flying colors.
I saved an incredible amount of money. Happy don't even come close. I was absolutely overjoyed.
Take Wesley's advice.
If you're in any kind of trouble with the IRS, call Optima Tax Relief. Don't trust anybody else.
Call Optima for a free consultation. Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. We'll be talking to UFC law professor Richard Epstein about the tariff decision shortly. But I did love, after the decision was handed down by the Supreme Court on Friday, and C-SPAN pouring over the, getting reactions and pouring over the impacts. They got a surprise call over at C-SPAN from John Barron. Remember John Barron? One of Trump's alter egos back in the day. And this John Barron does a pretty decent Trump impersonation.
John in Virginia, Republican. Let's hear from you.
Well, this is John Barron, and this is the worst decision you've ever had in your life, practically. Jack's going to agree with me, right? But this is a terrible decision. And you have Hakeem Jeffries, he's a dope, and you have Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger. Of course these people are happy. But true Americans will not be happy. And you have the woman earlier, I assume she's a woman, she's a Democrat, but she said she's disgraced. She's devastated.
All right,
by
John.
this.
Schumer can't cook a hamburger. Great patois, great Trump patois there. Very good. All right, Richard Epstein, 737. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 20 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the QC Kinetics newsroom. The leader of a major Mexican drug cartel that was killed yesterday was wanted here in Chicago. Known as El Mencho, the drug kingpin led the Jalisco New Generation cartel, which was said to be responsible for the trafficking of large amounts of drugs like fentanyl here in Chicago. El Mencho was under indictment in Chicago on charges ranging from drug trafficking to murder. A $15 million bounty had been placed on El Mencho by the U.S. Justice Department. A shelter-in-place warning has been issued to Americans who are living and vacationing in Puerto Vallarta following El Mencho's death as violence erupted throughout the area. Flights to and from Puerto Vallarta have been halted due to the violence. And one person is in custody following a shooting which left a 15-year-old injured on Sunday. According to reports, that shooting occurred inside a home in the Morgan Park neighborhood. Police say the boy was shot in the leg. He was taken to a local hospital for treatment. That investigation is continuing. This report is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Hugh Hewitt doesn't see a friendly Iran.
The USS Abraham Lincoln had an F-35 from the carrier shoot down a Shahed drone from Iran that got too close to the Lincoln. Also today, a half dozen Iranian gunboats approached a U.S.-flagged oil tanker and tried to take it under their control. This is not the action of a regime that wants to negotiate.
The Hugh Hewitt Show. Afternoons at 2, right before Alex Marlowe at 3 on AM 560. The Answer.
We've all heard the news. The flu virus has mutated again, and the vaccine just isn't as effective as they hoped. It leaves you wondering, how do you stay safe? But you have a powerful, God-given immune system. But with all these viruses coming out right now, it needs a serious boost. I'm Dr. Michael Huber, introducing Virago. We have put together a powerhouse formula containing quercetin, fistin, resveratrol, and lactoferrin. We combine these specific nutraceuticals with 19 other nutrients because of their synergistic effect. They work together to supercharge your immune system, creating a defense that is stronger than any single ingredient alone. This is the boost your body needs to fight back. So take Virago and boost your immune system. Virago, the immune enhancement cocktail.
Order your bottle of Virago. Visit myvirago.com. That's myvirago.com. Use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. myvirago.com. Coupon code IMMUNE. Virago and Maha. Making America healthy again.
Making the switch to a new communications and IT company may seem like a big ordeal, but if you're not getting the reliable support, consistent internet, and secure solutions your company needs, meet Access One, your local Chicagoland IT experts. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for over 30 years from our headquarters right here in the West Loop. Whether it's VoIP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One is here for you. Serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore, Access One is Chicago-owned and Chicago-run, a trusted IT partner for law firms, clinics, tech startups to manufacturers. We'll make the switch easier than you think. Let's talk. Call 800-804-8333 or visit accessoneInc.com. Rated top 5% in customer satisfaction and a Better Business Bureau A+ rated business. That's accessoneInc.com. Tech made personal, locally.
Active Liver from New Nordic protects your liver so you can enjoy life to the fullest. Online at Amazon or in stores at CVS, Wegmans, and now GNC.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. 15 minutes in, 17 out on the Edens from Lake Cook to Montrose. On the Kennedy, watch out for an inbound crash at River Road, takes out the left lane. 36 minutes inbound from O'Hare to the Burn Interchange, outbound is 32. 27 in, 17 out on the Ike from Wolf to the Old Post Office. 34 minutes inbound on the Stevenson from Veterans Memorial to Lakeshore. 25 minutes out, 18 in on the Dan Ryan from 95th to the Burn Interchange, outbound is 11. The northbound side of Lakeshore Drive, hitting those brakes from Bryn Mawr Avenue to Hollywood Avenue. This report is sponsored by Wendy's. New Girl Scout Thin Mints Frosty Fusion. Wendy's new Girl Scout Thin Mints Frosty Fusion is here. With a mint chocolate sauce, this treat was designed to be loved. But be sure to get the new Thin Mints Frosty Fusion soon, because just like Girl Scout cookies season, it won't be here forever. Plus, don't forget to order your fave cookies on girlscoutcookies.org. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's and Girl Scouts of the USA. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect a breezy morning followed by chilly conditions with a mix of clouds and sunshine. The high will reach 31. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of a late flurry, and the low will drop to 22. Tomorrow is set to be mostly cloudy, breezy, and milder with the high of 42. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Be a part of AM 560's Republican debate on Thursday, February 26th at Benedictine University in Lisle. Get your free tickets today at 560theanswer.com/debate.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, returning to the discussion we started last hour on the Supreme Court decision in learning resources, the tariff case. The president was none too happy, but as I said, none too sad either, because they anticipated this possible outcome, and they are ready with statutory authority that we went over from two particular pieces of legislation from 1962 and 1974 that gives the president, in coordination with the Commerce Department in one section, in coordination with the U.S. Trade Representative's Office in another section, the ability to essentially rework the terms that the president imposed unilaterally, well, in negotiation with other countries. Scott Bessent, making the call on CNN, made the rounds on the Sunday talkies, making the call across the globe to, for those who have entered into frameworks for agreements on trade policy, you would best continue to abide what has been negotiated, because we're going to get there through the back door, or maybe through the front door. There's probably a better description. We're going to get there through the front door this time, even though we've been there through the back door.
Again, we can move to 232 and 301 tariffs, so I think that everyone is going to honor their deal. And there is the draconian alternative that the Supreme Court reaffirmed that the president has. He has a right to a complete embargo. Right. Like he can just cut countries off. He can cut whole product lines off. We can't receive any money. So, I would call on all countries to honor their agreements and move forward.
Right. These sections deal with national security, deal with unfair trade practices, Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act, again, which hasn't been used before for tariffs, but does allow the president to impose tariffs of up to 15%, which he did, for as long as 150 days to address problems allegedly caused by persistent trade deficits. Whether you believe in such things or not, there's federal statutory law that provides for it. So the president is not without power here. And as to these refunds, that there was some question about, so does this mean that the tariffs collected have to be refunded? Well, that's a pending matter.
Question. Will you refund the roughly $134 billion in revenue taken by these emergency tariffs?
Well, Dana, that's not the big question. Let's just level set here. What the Supreme Court did was a very narrow reading of the president's authority under the IEEPA tariffs. We have other tariff authorities which have been functioning, Section 232 tariffs, Section 301 tariffs. And Dana, when you say it's a big question, that's bad framing because the Supreme Court didn't even address that. The Supreme Court remanded it down to a lower court, and we will follow what they say, but that could be weeks or months when we hear them. So the Supreme Court did not address refunds.
Sure, they didn't address refunds. That is clearly going to be up to you, which is why
No, Dana, it is not up to me. It is It is not up to the administration. It is up to the lower court. Let's just be clear on that.
Well, there you go. Boy, it's an odd approach for a dictatorial regime to take. It's up to the courts. Anyway, John Kennedy, senator from Louisiana, suggested that Democrats better be careful what they wish for here, even though Kennedy has not always agreed with Trump and some of his decisions with respect to tariffs.
How can I put this? He believes in being a bear. And he thinks if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. And I don't expect Western civilization to end here, and I don't expect the president, whether you agree with him or not, to back up on tariffs. The most interesting question is, what do we do with all this money? We've got between $150 and $400 billion in tariffs collected. That money's not in other countries, it's here. My Democratic colleagues are saying, oh, give it back, give it back. Well, my Democratic peeps better be careful what they ask for. Because if he gives back $300 billion worth of tariff money to the business community in America, this economy's going to roar, man. And the midterms are only a few months off.
Well, that's why they don't want it given back to the business community. They want it in the form of checks to everybody, as Pritzker proposed, $17 checks. Just sort of the free money being drop shipped from the federal government. It worked so well during COVID. So yeah, and by the way, the fact that we don't even know how much money we've collected, or it's in a range between 130 and $400 billion. Hey, good grief, government accounting. Kennedy went on to talk a little bit more, though, about Tariff Authority.
Tariff Authority presides with Congress. Now, Congress, on occasion, has shared that Tariff Authority with the executive branch. The Supreme Court today said we didn't share as much Tariff Authority with the president as he said we shared with him in the IEEPA statute. So he can amend that statute. Right. But my point is, in the meantime, he didn't wait around for a Supreme Court opinion. Right. He used the leverage from IEEPA to negotiate trade agreements. And I don't agree with everything he's done on trade, but if I'm sitting there in the president's shoes, I'm going to take my win. Right. And that's why I say my views are, I'm going to take my win. Right.
And of course, John Kennedy is an officer of the court. He is an attorney. So interesting. I think that's right, and what he described there is essentially the reasoning at least in the Gorsuch concurrence. For more on this, please be joined by Professor Richard Epstein, James Parker Hall, Distinguished Service Professor Emeritus of Law, Senior Lecturer at the University of Chicago. Professor Epstein, thank you as always for being with us.
it's always a pleasure to be with you, particularly in these loony times.
Yes. So we've got three different cohorts of justices here on this case. Where do you fall in terms of the reasoning, the competing reasonings offered, and why?
Well, in general, I'm a hardliner when it comes to this. IEPA doesn't come within a country mile of authorizing what the president said. If you start looking at what the Kavanaugh opinion said in its dissent, what it does is it quotes the word regulation and importation and then leaves out everything in between. And that's just not the way you do statutory interpretation when there's so many other issues that are at stake. There's one of the ironies there. The president, therefore, would have equal authority over importations and exportations. They're both in the statute. But if you look at the Constitution, the president has no power, the Congress has no power to put tariffs on exports. And so the statute, therefore, would fall. So you have to give it the more sensible reason that regulation includes all the other things that they put on that very long list: to investigate, block the independency of an investigation, direct, compel, and nullify, void, prevent, prohibit importation or exportation. If you have all those things on a list, you can't sneak in tariffs as though it doesn't exist. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that there is no authority that the president has, I think, with respect to the other statutes, which he's trying to cite in this particular case. They simply do not go as far as he would like them to go in dealing with this. So you take Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. It says the president has the power to deal with large and serious United States balance of payment deficits, right? Okay, well, what's a large and serious deficit? The president's definition of this is exactly the same as his definition of an emergency. We've always had deficits. They've always been large, and they've always been serious. His account is that a statute which has never been used even once to deal with this problem is so comprehensive that we could have invoked it any time in the last 35 years. But large and serious means is the balance of payment system such that to disrupt the operation of the economy. And he can't make a case out for that. And so what then goes is the issue that was not addressed in the opinion, any three of them. Who gets the power to determine whether or not there's an emergency that triggers the operation of these statutes? Because remember, that's the precondition. The president's view is he can declare any emergency he wants because there's no external authority. That is just plain wrong. There has to be an independent verification that there's some emergency out there, and none has been offered in this case. And once the emergency is independently established, not by the president, but by a court or some independent board, then he has much greater latitude with respect to the remedies. But he has no latitude in order to declare a thing and then vote. And when you start looking at this, to deal with a large and serious balance of payment deficit, that's not what Trump is doing. The man's become a child, and he's expressing his pique at everybody in the world by imposing these tariffs. It has no relationship to anything that's going on with respect to the global economy. He first puts it at 10%, then he raises it to 15%, and this is just all in. If you look at the other statute, IEPA, it says you can't use these things for any other purpose. That's got to be implied in every statute. You cannot use them in order to bully whip the United States Supreme Court in your own particular way. So Bessent is just plain wrong. The biggest mistake, I just put this, that they made the first time round, which leads to the screw up on refund, is after it turned out that the president lost down below, what happened was they applied for a preliminary injunction to stop it, so you would prevent these things from accumulating. But the standard test for that under a case called Winter worry about the public interest and, most importantly, about the likelihood of success on appeal, which was extremely high because the case was sound. The intermediate court denied that. So what happens, the tariffs keep on coming when by any standard theory they should not have been allowed to continue at all. That's going to come up at this point. And now one of the things that happens is, if I'm correct, that the statute does not authorize this because there's no independent finding and the definition he's using is much too broad, there should be a preliminary injunction that stops him. And there's more reason to give it because everybody knows he didn't pick this first because there are real constraints on it. He just used it as a backup. He's not made any findings of any of the difficulties that are associated with any of these systems.
Well, but
so you have...
Okay, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish.
But where is the balance of payment deficit that causes serious international location? The only thing that causes this serious international dislocations are his erratic powers policy. That's not a reason for invoking second statute when he's basically been illegal with respect to his use of the first.
But now address the Thomas Alito Kavanaugh dissent, where Thomas argues that the non-delegation doctrine, which holds that Congress can give away some powers to other branches, but not essential legislative functions, is not applicable here because the essential legislative function, this is not an essential legislative function. The dissent, the power to impose duties on imports can be delegated. At the founding, that power was regarded as one of the many powers over foreign commerce that could be delegated to the president. Power over foreign commerce was not within the core legislative power, and engaging in foreign commerce was regarded as a privilege rather than a right. Thomas goes on to say the non-delegation. One more. Okay. Thomas goes on to say the non-delegation doctrine only applies to congressional powers that implicate life, liberty, and property. And his implication there is that, well, this doesn't. The president's use of tariffs doesn't implicate life, liberty, and property. What do you say to that?
Look, this is just completely wrong. I mean, the first thing, we do have an explicit prohibition in the Constitution about imposing export taxes. And that clearly is something which cannot be gotten around by delegation. Secondly, of course, these powers can be delegated. The statute requires it. But you have to do the delegation within the limits of the particular statute, and Thomas does not address that. By taking, as Justice Kavanaugh did, the two words, regulation, importation, and dropping out the rest of the sentence, it's a complete distortion of what the statute says. His dissent was absolutely one of the weakest things that I've ever read. I mean, this is a situation when you're looking at delegation, and you know that these are extremely sensitive issues. You don't read these things in a crazy fashion. So there is a dispute between two halves of the majority, as you know. Justice Roberts is very partial to the major question doctrine, and this is surely one of those. Justice Kagan doesn't like it and doesn't think it's needed. I, in fact, agree with her. I don't think you need that in this particular case. You have to go with all those other words about the kind of massive dislocations that trigger the application, and there's none evidence whatsoever is introduced on that. What happens is the whole question of what is meant by an emergency, which is raised in the title of the statute, is never considered by the court. Now, when you get to this next case, where they have to talk about serious dislocations and the like, they're going to have to raise that because it's in the core of the statute. And I don't think that they can make that. And so I regard this as just totally irresponsible behavior on the part of the president. And I listen to Mr. Bessent, I'm thinking of an excuse factory. He doesn't want to come to grip with the serious stuff about him. He just assumes that this statute arises. And in fact, if you read most of the commentary, even in the Wall Street Journal, they seem to say the same thing. They haven't read the statute closely. You have to quote the language from the thing and deal with it. And I would hope that somebody would bring an immediate action to stop this and move for a preliminary injunction, both of which should be granted. He should not be allowed to do this as he did it the first time with massive dislocation unless there's been some imprimatur by a court, because otherwise, in fact, the executive is king, the Congress doesn't matter, the court doesn't matter. The only person who matters is Donald J. Trump.
Well, I mean, but it's not just Trump, because we have three justices weighing in on this. And one of the things that Gorsuch said in his...
a terrible opinion.
Well, I'm not. I mean, that's okay. I get your argument, but I mean, he's not alone on this. Is my point. I mean, three justices, particularly of that stature, those gentlemen of that stature. It's not inconsequential. It has to be addressed. But Gorsuch in his concurrence made the point that these justices that are offering sort of a pass on major questions. The use of the major questions doctrine, the way they're addressing it in this case, is exactly the opposite of the way they addressed it in the Biden student loan case. He made that point as well. He sort of insinuated it. Is Gorsuch right on that score?
Yeah. I mean, look, the Biden situation was another illustration of unilateral presidential power in the sheer faith of clear statutes that went in the opposite direction. And what happens is there's too much in common between Biden and Trump. Both of them believe in unilateralism in a very strong degree. And essentially, my view when you say that the president has executive power, you have to read the rest of the sentence. And that says to see that the laws are faithfully executed. And when you basically misread the statute, you're not doing that. And if you don't do that, then you're not entitled to any deference, which you're normally supposed to be able to get. What's happened is the general rule of statutory interpretation is you assume that the executive branch is acting in good faith. But if you have strong reasons to believe, and the peak really shows that he's not acting in good faith, then all claim for deference starts to disappear, and you're subjecting to strict scrutiny. And he can't meet that. The Bessent speech was just awful in terms of the way in which it assumes that unilateralism is there. Trump did not use the other statutes first because he knew they were weaker. Now that those statutes are struck down, he said, oh, they're just as good as the statute that we had. But he has not satisfied the precondition. So I'm going to ask you again, tell me where the balance of payments situation in the world is in massive disarray. The way he defines that term, this statute could have been invoked at any time since the date of its passage.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but I haven't gone through the intent of the legislation, the Section 122, that Section 122 inspired, or was inspired by the point is that, I mean, there's not like it's a tiered monetary threshold. So if you have a trade deficit and the president says that trade deficit is, presents as some sort of imminent concern for the federal government, then it seems like that statute provides him pretty wide authority, at least for 150 days. At least for 150 days.
No, it doesn't. In my view, I think it's exactly the opposite. You look at the kinds of things that trigger all this stuff. There's a tsunami that starts to take somewhere, and the capital markets on a given issue start to shut down. That's what counts as a serious disruption, and that's where the president.
But that's not in the statute. That's not in the statute.
But when you start talking about a question of what you mean by large and serious, what you're saying is that everything is large and serious.
No,
so
I'm saying. Well, but I'm saying I'm just going by the language of the statute and the wide berth it gives the president. I'm not arguing a position of whether the statute was properly crafted.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying take the statute as what do you mean by when they start using the words having to be extremely prolonged and serious. This is a very, very clear statute. And the question you have to ask, as you did with the trade statute, Trump was clearly wrong when he said balance of payments issues deficits are essentially a serious disruptive events. They're not. It turns out the balance of payments is utterly irrelevant on the deficit question to the prosperity of the United States. So what happens is we have relatively open free trade policy, and we wipe the floor with the Germans and everybody else in Europe have more restrictive policy. What's happened is free trade has been the engine of prosperity, and this man thinks that reciprocal trade is needed, which is a level of ignorance with respect to the economics. He's creating a system, calling it emergency, the very situation that makes this country great. He's got it 180% backwards.
Well, I'm oriented towards free trade too, so I agree with you generally speaking on the economics. But what we're arguing is the law and what kind of power the executive has versus Congress, and he has some statutory power.
He does, no, but not to this case. I mean, you look at all the cases. The only time where the tariff issue became relevant was in the Iranian crisis, a very different kind of problem with massive war and withholding of funds. And it turned out they set up this commission. And so there's some maybe residual power. But in fact, if you start looking at the statute, there was a nice piece this morning by Jonathan Adler on Civitas, where I also write. And he says you can look for that whole statute, and you cannot find the word tariff in any operative provision of IEEPA. Now, you can find tariffs in the Tariff Act, but there's still a precondition for using it, which has to be this major and serious problem. You have to show that. And there isn't. The problem of world stability and balance of payments is threatened by only one thing at this point, Trump's tariffs. Nothing else has anything to do with it. He's completely erratic about it. But I think it can be said you won't bring down a nation with tariffs because 90% of our economy tends to be internally focused. But what will happen is there'll be lots of disruptions along the way. And so he's basically saying, since I was such an incompetent in the way in which I dealt with the tariffs, I now have power under the Tariff Act in order to change the way in which these things are going on. That's what his argument boils down to. I make a big enough mess of something, and then I'm allowed to make a bigger mess of it under the second statute. The man is not responsible, and his motivation has nothing to do with the economy. He's just mad at the Supreme Court.
Professor Richard, you get the last word. Professor Richard Epstein, James Parker Hall, Distinguished Service Professor, Emeritus of Law and Senior Lecturer, University of Chicago. Professor Epstein, thank you as always. Do appreciate it.
Okay, we do like our sparring matches, though.
I do too. It's wonderful. Thank you for joining us. And he joins us on Chicago's Morning Answer. All right, coming up at 8:08, we're going to continue this conversation, at least in part, with Richard Reinsch, editor-in-chief of Civitas Outlook, which is just mentioned by Professor Epstein. And then at the bottom of the hour, Dominic Green from the Washington Examiner, a little bit on the Epstein files. It's now 8 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
A lot of the Northeast is shut down by a blizzard. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. And as the snow comes down hard and sideways in the wind, a lot of cities are dealing with this.
We got about 16 inches of snow about 3.5 weeks ago. Some of that melted, but a lot of it was just piled up. So we're going to be out of places to put snow with this storm.
Warwick, Rhode Island Mayor Frank Picozzi. Some areas from New Jersey on up will measure the snow in feet, and there are nearly hurricane-force wind gusts. Fox Weather's Mike Seidel is on New York's Long Island.
Right now, Montauk, our winds are gusting up to 60 miles an hour. I've measured about 18 inches of snow. Nearby, Islip has had just under 2 feet. Officially, by the way, New York City and Central Park through 7 a.m. Eastern, they've had 15.1. That is their biggest snowfall since 2017, but they'll likely top that because we got more snow to come.
All that heavy snow and strong wind knocking out power across the Northeast. More than 500,000 power outages. The most are in Massachusetts and New Jersey. And there are a lot of planes on the ground. More than 5,000 flights canceled today. More than 1,300 cancellations already tomorrow. The storm forced the Team USA men's hockey team to divert their return from the Winter Olympics in Italy, rerouting them through Miami after they won gold, beating Canada 2-1 in overtime. Jack Hughes scored the game winner.
Anything can happen. I mean, they have very skilled players. We have very skilled players. It's just up and down the rink.
President Trump called the team after the win, inviting them to tomorrow's State of the Union address, though it's not clear how many could go with the NHL season resuming this week. This morning, the president posted on Truth Social a swipe at the Supreme Court, striking down most of his tariffs Friday. He has since imposed a 15% global tariff on imports and wrote in the Post they accidentally gave him far more power and strength than he had prior to do terrible things to foreign countries who are ripping us off. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, a Democrat, tells ABC's This Week.
The president was acting outside his legal authority. By the way, not a new thing for him. As someone who's had to take him to court 19 times as governor.
America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 21 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the QC Kinetics newsroom. 2 women are dead following a house fire this morning. According to reports, the fire broke out just before 1:30 in the North Lake area. Family members identified the victims as 65-year-old Susan Paulos and 63-year-old Mary Carmen Wilkerson. The pair were the only people inside the home when the fire broke out. Cause of the blaze is under investigation. Governor J.B. Pritzker has proposed housing reform aimed at lower housing costs, but a local government advocate says the governor may be missing the mark. Jim Talamonte has the details.
Saying rent is too high and home ownership is too far out of reach, Pritzker announced the BUILD plan to eliminate barriers and reduce costs. Illinois Municipal League CEO Brad Cole said the governor's proposal addressed a lot of things that don't affect the cost of housing.
The number of stairs that are in an apartment building, or the setback distance around single-family homes, or allowing new development on individual lots. A number of those things, including maybe the timeline for inspections, don't add a lot of cost to housing.
Cole said inflated housing costs are affected by the price of goods and services and actual construction costs. I'm Jim Talamonte.
And the deal isn't done yet, but the Chicago Parks District is already making plans to renovate Soldier Field once the Chicago Bears are gone. According to a statement, the Park District says they're working on plans to turn the stadium into a world-class concert and event space. At a proposed cost of $630 million, that plan includes $130 million that would go to direct stadium renovations, including a new sound system, new dressing rooms, and $500 million in infrastructure improvements. This report is a service of the daily podcast of Chicago's Morning Answer and The Sean Thompson Show. Hear both shows with limited commercials when you subscribe for free to the daily podcast at 560theanswer.com/podcast. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes, but time now for the AM 560 Business Beat, a service of Signature Bank.
I'm Charles Payne, and this is the Fox Business Report.
The Trump administration has laid out its response to the Supreme Court decision ruling many tariffs illegal, though Wall Street sees continued uncertainty and stock futures are lower. Reuters says the impact of different tariff strategies could take months to play out. Gold prices are higher, topping $5,100. Gold is also impacted by the U.S.-Iran situation. Pharma giant Merck says it will split its human health business into 2 2 divisions. The move will create an operation that houses cancer drug Keytruda, which is about to lose its patent protection. NVIDIA, known for producing chips for artificial intelligence, is getting back into the business of running your personal computer. The Wall Street Journal says NVIDIA will produce chips for laptops hitting the market this year from Dell, Lenovo, and others. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Coselda, invested in you.
Scott Jennings sees a disconnect.
2/3 of Americans say that yes, local police and jails should hand illegal immigrants over to federal law enforcement. Of course, the Tim Walz and Jacob Fry position is that they will not cooperate. Democrats, it seems, are badly out of step with the American people.
The Scott Jennings Show, weekdays at noon, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on AM 560. The Answer. Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
I'm alpine skier Michaela Schifrin. I've won the most World Cup ski races in history. But what does success mean to me? Success means discipline. It's teamwork. It's the drive and passion inside of us, and it's why Stifel is one of the fastest growing global wealth management firms in the country. If you're looking for success, surround yourself with the people who will get you there. If you're an advisor or investor, choose Stifel, where success meets success.
Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated. Member SIPC and NYSE.
Past performance is no indication of future results. Investing involves risk. Consult a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
Did you know most remodeling mishaps start before construction even begins? Here's something else you should know. At Forever Remodeling, we do things differently. Every kitchen, bathroom, and basement project starts with smart planning, detailed 3D designs, a clear scope of work, and accurate pricing, all sorted out before you get started. No surprises, no stress, just beautiful results. Done right the first time. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, EVER, remodeling.com, and schedule your free in-home consultation today.
The following advertisement includes a celebrity impersonation.
Let me tell you, Chicago gets cold, very cold, and they love me in Chicago. The fake news isn't reporting it, but it's true. And you can't have your furnace fail in Chicago. That's no good.
That's when you should call Air Right Heating and Cooling.
The technicians, beautiful people. You're freezing, everybody's freezing. They show up fast, know what they're doing, and get the heat back on quickly.
Air Right Heating and Cooling offers 24/7 service throughout Chicagoland.
A broken furnace in Chicago is like living in Greenland. And believe me, I know Greenland. Very cold, lots of ice. These guys install the best furnaces. Frankly, it's not even close. Even Rosie O'Donnell would say I'm right, but she won't.
For fast, reliable heating service, trust Air Right Heating and Cooling. Tell them AM 560 sent you and save $56 off any service.
Nobody's ever done anything like that. Unbelievable.
Visit them at air-right.com. That's AIR-RITE.com. Doing it right since 1959.
On Salem News Channel, principled voices are shaping today's conversation. Scott Jennings brings clarity to the toughest debates. Josh Hammer's blistering commentary puts politics and culture on trial. And Alex Marlowe's insight connects us to what matters most. Watch anytime on Samsung TV Plus, Pluto TV, or find us on your screen at snc.tv. 3 new shows, 1 powerful lineup. Salem News Channel, across America.
Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr., now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. Inbound on the Edens from Lake Cook to Montrose is 15, getting slow on the outbound side, 22 minutes. Now we are jammed on the eastbound side of the Jane Addams and the southbound Tri-State as you get onto the ramps to the Kennedy O'Hare extension. Also on the northbound Tri-State, the exit ramp to get onto the westbound Eisenhower, watch out for a collision on that ramp. Now the Kennedy also has an accident to slow you down. It's inbound at River Road. 2 left lanes are closed closed, so 37 minutes from O'Hare to the Burn interchange. Outbound is 36 minutes inbound on the Ike from Wolf to the Post Office, 22 on the reverse side. Stevenson, that's 50 minutes from Veterans Memorial to Lakeshore, 26 minutes out. The Dan Ryan is 25 minutes in from 95th to the Burn interchange, 11 out. This report is the service of the AM 560 store. Order t-shirts, hoodies, and more from your favorite AM 560 brands, including Proft University and The Sean Thompson Show, when you go to 560theanswer.com/store. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect a breezy morning followed by chilly conditions with a mix of clouds and sunshine. The high will reach 31 degrees. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of a late flurry, and temperatures will drop to a low of 22. Tomorrow is forecasted to be mostly cloudy, breezy, and milder with a high of 42 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. I opened the show talking about the left, some on the left's belief that violence is a legitimate means to political ends amid the latest incursion at Mar-a-Lago, where there was a 21-year-old young man from North Carolina who brought a shotgun and gasoline to the president's private residence and raised the shotgun against Secret Service agents and was shot and killed. Just the latest example. Concurrent with that, over the weekend, a plot to attack a facility where DHS agents are in Meridian, Idaho, was thwarted. Again, the individual, according to local police there, intending to burn down that facility and obviously threaten the lives of DHS agents and others in so doing. We just see this repeat itself again and again, and I was reminded of perhaps the most important aphorism that Trump has offered over the last 10 years when he said, and he said this repeatedly because it's been consistently true, that they're not coming after me, the left. They're not coming after me. They're coming after you. I'm just standing in the way. And this seems to me something that should be central in this election year with an eye towards the presidential in 28. I mean, all of these materialistic issues are subordinated to the question of whether or not we're going to live in a free society or one that is ordered on the vision of Thomas Hobbes. Susan Rice, a veteran of the Obama years, as you well know, offered this, and she's just the latest person to bang the drums of lawfare with an eye towards regaining control of at least one chamber and beginning to initiate that action over the last 2 years of Trump's presidency. Take a listen to what she said.
But when it comes to the elites, you know, the corporate interests, the law firms, the universities, the media, I agree with you, Preet. It is not. It's not going to end well for them. For those that decided that it was, you know, that they would act in their perceived very narrow self-interest, which I would underscore is very short-term self-interest, and, you know, take a knee to Trump. I think they're now starting to realize, wait a minute, you know, this is not popular. Trump is not popular. What he is doing, whether on the economy and affordability or on immigration now, is not popular. And that there is likely to be a swing in the other direction. And they are going to be caught with more than their pants down. They're going to be held accountable by those who come in opposition to Trump and win at the ballot box. And I can tell you, Preet, you know, as I talk to leaders in Washington, leaders in our party, leaders in the states, if these corporations think that the Democrats, when they come back in power, are going to, you know, play by the old rules, and say, oh, never mind, we'll forgive you for all the people you've fired, all the policies and principles you've violated, all, the laws you've skirted. I think they've got another thing coming. This is not going to be an instance of, forgive and forget.
Right.
The damage that these people are doing is too severe to the American people and to our national interest.
So let me understand something, Ambassador Rice. Up until now, the left has been turning the other cheek. Is that what I'm meant to understand? And it's going to be no more Mr. Nice Guy if the American people entrusted you with the reins of power? It's chilling. For more on the topic and others, please be joined by Richard Reinsch, Editor-in-Chief of Civitas Outlook. Richard, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
How do you internalize what Susan Rice is offering there?
Well, I think when Democrats act that way, when they speak that way, when they indicate they're going to use the state as a prosecuting agent against Republicans or people they define as Republicans, which it's curious in that list. Did you hear what she said? Higher education, journalism. Yeah. These are Republican-owned sectors of our country.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I can guess what I think she might be referring to there. But I find that sort of laughable. But when they act in this way and give indications that they're going to use the government in that capacity, that's actually what propels Republicans forward. It's interesting to just think back to 2023. The Trump campaign begins to gain steam precisely when they start prosecuting it. And maybe they wanted to bring that about. Some think they wanted to bring that about. That would make him weaker, but it actually ended up making him stronger and made the case look better. So if that's the way they want to go, I think that's an irresponsible politics that will cause them to lose.
Yeah, but I mean, what they're saying is that like you will abide the orthodoxy. I don't care if you're an institution that we otherwise dominate. You will abide it, or we will purge you. I mean, it's Robespierre would be blushing.
No, but this is Susan Rice. This is one of their most aggressive partisans they have. This is a woman famously who went on TV and lied on 6 different shows on Sunday morning about, if you remember back to the video over the burning of our embassy in the Middle East, and this sort of half-concocted lie the Obama administration produced about that event. She went and gladly lied about it. So that's kind of who she is. Right? That's what she does.
Yeah, no, right. That was the Benghazi cover story.
Yeah.
Well, you wrote this interesting piece about sort of conservatism in the moment, and has the definition of what constitutes a common sense conservative in 2025, 26. Has that changed from say 80, 81? One thing I wanted to ask, though, just thinking about what you wrote, and then I'll let you offer sort of a summation of it. But the landscape has changed so much, and you think about like somebody myself who grew up during the Reagan years, so I'm sort of Reagan generation conservative. But I'm thinking about myself back then, where as opposed to people maybe a little bit older than me at the time, compared to now, there's this. Data that was released, that estimates the percentage of 30-year-olds in America who are both married and homeowners. In 1950, that was that was in the high 40%. Almost half of 30-year-olds were married and homeowners in 1950. Today, that is hovering around 15%. And I wonder what that portends for the future of conservatism.
Yeah. Well, that's a very long set of events to try and come to terms with. When I wrote that essay, and it was sort of like, what did conservatism learn from the Nixon and the Ford presidencies? And as much as things have changed, obviously this is a country that's in motion perpetually. But I think 3 things remain true, even in 2026. One is conservatives win, and this is true for young people who maybe want to marry, but wonder about costs and things like this. Conservatism wins with supply side principles. That is to say, the principles that bring people into the market bring their labor, bring their investment, bring their consumption, and know that their individual choices matter and aren't going to be dictated to them by the government. That was sort of the crucial lesson of the Reagan administration. I think another one is, and is very important, is we value the family, and we value this sort of relational aspect of the human person. And we want to make family life sort of an integral part of everything we do. And we see this right now. Why are so many families leaving states like Minnesota or California or New York for Texas or for Florida or for Tennessee? And it is the fiscal conservatism. It is that sense of being able to keep more of what you earn and have a lower cost of living. But it's also sort of a cultural sanity that prevails in these states. So we want to build on that principle. And then the third is originalism itself, which gave conservatives a way of talking about the Constitution in a very principled way that limits government, that gives you sort of a predictability as to what the Constitution can do. And it's not just sort of a, elastic Mr. Potato Head factory for, judges to push us in a progressive direction. I think all of those principles remain not just true, but are needed as we move forward as conservatives and deal with sort of the rhetoric of a Susan Rice or others, as we think about, is the green energy revolution dead? There's a lot of indications it is. Is DEI dead? My sense is if they're in power, it comes back again. So we need to have these principles in place to talk about that and to rebut it.
What about the Leviathan, the welfare state? And, it's, exponential growth over the last 65 years. Are we in a moment here with the exposés on massive benefit fraud where we can perhaps muster the political courage to do what we know needs to be done, but we've been unwilling to do it, even going back to Reagan?
Yeah, I know. I wish. Look, we've got to come to terms with, first of all, the means-tested entitlement programs have been growing dramatically in this country since the 1980s. And before that, but there's been dramatic growth. People don't realize it. And the cost is not just the actual fiscal cost, but it's also what it does to the character of American citizens, the way it takes them away from work, from thriving, from opportunity, from believing in themselves, and sort of places them as wards of the state, and they start to see themselves in partnership with the government. That has to happen through a Republican Party that talks about this crucial idea of work and freedom and opportunity again. And in conjunction with what types of citizens do we want to form? Do we want to have 20, 30, 40% of the country, of households in this country, dependent upon the government in some way? So fraud that we see in Minnesota, exacerbated by the particular details of this immigrant community, go with the territory when you're spending that much money. My sense is we're going to see a lot coming out of California soon in terms of fraud and in other states, but that goes with the territory. Now, will we see the Democrats try and prevent the ability to detect fraud in various states? I guess we will. So that's crucial, but also not just means-tested entitlements, but the overall Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those things as well. We can confront them and deal with them in a prudential way, or we're going to face sooner or later some sort of catastrophic situation where dramatic cuts have to be made, which are going to make a lot of people's lives are going to hurt them because they're going to take huge cuts in their benefits. But that's sort of where we're setting ourselves up by refusing to have this conversation about what can we afford and why, and what types of citizens do we want to produce.
Yeah, it looks like Cloward and Piven had a pretty good idea if you wanted to have a slow-rolling Marxist revolution, which we're well on the way for, because it doesn't seem to me like there is the gravity, the center of gravity is not where it was, and I don't know how you get there. Like in the mid-'90s when you had conservative reform governors like Engler and Tommy Thompson, and even moderates like Jim Edgar in Illinois. And you had the DLC crowd, governors like Bill Clinton, who signed on to, basic reforms like work requirements to realign the incentives in the direction of work rather than dependency. But there's nobody on the other party that's willing to do that, as far as I can tell. Maybe John Fetterman, and there's very few people on the conservative side that want to spend the political capital.
No, and I think too it's a shift in rhetoric even in the Republican side. I mean, there's this sort of sense of, well, everybody is aggrieved and everybody is sort of preyed upon by elites. And while I'm not going to excuse a lot of behavior of our elites over the last few decades, I think it is still largely the case that, work, discipline, prudence in your personal life, you can succeed in this country without being dependent upon some government program. And that case has to be made again by the Republican Party in a very aggressive way, that you are not a victim. And that has sort of fallen by the wayside, I think. And it has to be recovered. And it has to be recovered not only because it's good for our fiscal side, but it's the best way to be a citizen. It's the best way to thrive as a human being.
I did want to get your take on the learning resources decision the Supreme Court handed down on Friday on the president's tariff power. You obviously have seen his reaction, although, it's not nearly as devastating to his approach with respect to the use of tariffs as some might imagine, as we've been discussing all morning, including with Professor Richard Epstein earlier last hour. Yeah. But the other thing too is, even as like a free trade guy as I am, let's not be Pollyannish. I mean, Reagan used tariffs too as supply side and free market as he was. So it's not like it's the way Trump does this, like just about everything else, that represents a bit of a paradigm shift from the Reagan era. But it's not like conservatives haven't seen utility in the use of tariffs to advance national security interests. Yeah, sometimes to protect industries, but also sometimes to use, as Trump has, as a cudgel to get better trade deals for American companies. So maybe he overstepped, but there are statutory powers that he has that allows him to maybe get in a more orderly way to the same place and for the same net benefits for America. Is that fair?
Well, I will say, I would just briefly say, I think Reagan fundamentally was a free trader, and operating with a protectionist Congress, and made concessions where he had to sort of avert an overall protectionist landscape. Yeah. I think that's very different from what Trump tries to do. I think the use, if you're going to advance tariffs as broadly as Trump wants to do, the better course would be to proceed through Congress. But he didn't want to do that. He used the statute. I think the telling line for me in the majority opinion, which relies on the major questions doctrine, which has been primarily has fallen on Democratic presidents, whether that's the vaccination mandate, the use of the EPA in an expansive way to basically eliminate the coal industry,
student
loans industry, and so that it fell now on a Republican president says to me this is a good doctrine, and it's a good doctrine because we're dealing with executive power operating in a manner unconstrained by Congress, and the court is really inviting Congress to get back in the game and be an equal branch in Washington. But the telling line for me in the majority opinion was, neither the government nor the dissenting opinion could produce one instance where a federal statute using the word regulation also included the word tax. And that's essentially what this case came down to, according to the majority, is within the IEEPA statute, there was no power to tax, only a power to regulate. And to shoehorn tax into that just went too far.
Yeah, right.
I think as a constitutionalist, I agree with that opinion. I understand, the dissent has its own persuasive case to make. I'm not saying that Kavanaugh and Alito and these brilliant men that I admire so much were just categorically in error. But I think you have to come down ultimately in the balance that the court strikes, which is if you're going to claim a tremendous power to tax over the American economy, it better come through Congress, not a very creative, expansive reading of a federal statute.
Yeah, I mean, there's ironies abound, of course. I mean, I agree with what you said, but there are ironies abound. So Roberts, who turned an individual mandate into a tax, doesn't want to turn a regulation into a tax. Boy, if only he had been a little bit more intellectually consistent when Obamacare was on the table, right?
Yeah. No, that point is taken. I think the overall usage of trying to limit what's happened in this country, where and this has been, I think this will be sort of the legacy of the Roberts Court, is this invitation to Congress, and it's more of an invitation, and it's an imploring Congress to actually get back into Washington and not just be sort of this side piece, but be what it's designed to be in the Constitution, which really is the first among equals. And that's clear to me in this case. Another invitation to do that. And I think that's going to be Robert's legacy. Ultimately, is trying to rebalance our federal government. This opinion, as we think about what's happened over the past year, it seems to me that Donald Trump, a large part of his economic case was predicated on tariffs. And it seems to me you've got a Republican Congress push this through Congress in some way. And I don't think that he can. And what it says to me is actually the Republican Party is far more divided than what we're told on this question. And if that's the case, then you've got to deal with it in that manner, not sort of unilateral executive power.
Richard Reinsch is the editor-in-chief of Civitas Outlook. Richard, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me.
And he joined us on Chicago's Morning Answer. Now let's check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 20 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keen in the QC Kinetics newsroom. The leader of a major Mexican drug cartel that was killed yesterday was wanted here in Chicago. Known as El Mencho, the drug kingpin led the Jalisco New Generation cartel, which was said to be responsible for the trafficking of large amounts of drugs like fentanyl into Chicago. El Mencho was under indictment here in Chicago on charges that were ranging from drug trafficking to murder. A $15 million bounty had been placed on El Mencho by the U.S. Justice Department. A shelter-in-place warning has been issued to Americans who are living and vacationing in Puerto Vallarta following El Mencho's death, as violence erupted throughout the area. 2 women are dead following a fire this morning. According to reports, that blaze broke out just before 1:30 in the North Lake area. Family members identified the victims as 65-year-old Susan Palos and 63-year-old Mary Carmen Wilkerson. The pair were the only people inside the home when the fire broke out. Cause of that fire under investigation. This report is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Alex Marlow sees momentum.
This is a day where we have got, I think, the left and the media on the run completely. The data seem to suggest that America's coming back. We have fewer border crossers than ever. We've got a lower murder rate. We've got a huge projected growth in the economy coming up this year. And we're seeing stuff like a plan to lower prescription drug prices, trying to get California back on track.
The Alex Marlow Show. Afternoons at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Mike Lindell and the MyPillow employees want to thank you for your great support this past year. They want to make 2026 the best year ever. So to thank you, they are giving you free shipping on your entire order and wholesale pricing. So they are bringing back the mega sale. For example, the classic MyPillows, regularly $49.98, now only $14.98. Turn any mattress into the best mattress ever with the Made in the USA MyPillow My Mattress Topper and save up to $100. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets for as low as $29.98 or the 6-pack towel set for only $34.98. To get the best specials ever, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. These offers won't last long, so call 800-489-0201 or go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY. Order now and your entire order ships absolutely free.
In his new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, Dinesh D'Souza brings the new Middle East into focus.
Could the fate of the world, of humanity itself, be somehow tied to this place?
At long last, we have peace in the Middle East.
Israel and Christians are coming together in a way they have never been before.
But is this the end of Hamas and radical Islam? The Dragon's Prophecy is powerful, prophetic, a must-see movie. Now available on Amazon, YouTube, and iTunes. Take the journey of living a happy, successful, and meaningful life through God. Listen to It's Time with Dan Lights, Sunday mornings at 9 on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
If you're looking to purchase a loved one's home after they passed away, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Pam wanted to purchase her grandmother's $400,000 home after she passed away, which was left to Pam's father, Ted, and her Aunt Betty. Ted listens to my show and wanted to forego his half of the equity of his mom's home and sell Pam the home for $200,000. Bad move. I recommended Pam purchase the home for $400,000 and get a gift of equity from her father, Ted, for $200,000, which enabled Pam to purchase the home with a lower rate and no money out of her pocket. Let's review. I helped Pam purchase her grandmother's home without having to bring a penny to the closing and secure a lower rate. Team Hochberg's helped thousands of radio listeners, but we can't help if you don't call 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. That's 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. Atlantic Coast Mortgage, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 643114.
Hey, it's Scott Jennings inviting you to join me on the unforgettable Gulf of America cruise happening this November 2026. Imagine it. Turquoise waters, white sand, beaches, incredible food, and insightful conversations about the future of our great country. Mike Gallagher and I will dive into the issues shaping America as we cruise through some of the most stunning destinations while honoring the 250th anniversary of our nation. Text cruise to 94878 or visit scottjenningsshow.com and click the cruise banner to sign up today.
This hourly segment brought to you by Unleash Your Wealth with Raj Shah and Rick Borick this Saturday at 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. Learn more at scwealthadvisors.com.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. In great shape on the Edens, 15 minutes both ways from Lake Cook to Montrose, and the Kennedy is 34 minutes in both directions from O'Hare to the Byrne Interchange. The Eisenhower, you've got 34 in, 21 out from Wolf to the old post office, 35 in on the Stevenson from Veterans Memorial to Lakeshore, 27 on the reverse side, 27 inbound on the Dan Ryan from 95th to the Byrne Interchange, 13 minutes outbound on the inbound express lanes, a little bit sluggish from 51st Street to the Stevenson, and jam-packed northbound on Lakeshore Drive between Bryn Mawr Avenue and Hollywood Avenue. This report is sponsored by True Green. True Green, don't waste another weekend doing your lawn care yourself. Partner with the official lawn care treatment provider of the PGA Tour and get a golf course quality lawn the easy way. Sign up at truegreen.com. Then sit back and relax. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect a breezy morning followed by chilly conditions with a mix of clouds and sunshine. The high will reach 31. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of a late flurry, and the low will drop to 22. Tomorrow is set to be mostly cloudy, breezy, and milder with the high of 42. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. A riddle wrapped in a conundrum, consumed in a dilemma, the Jeffrey Epstein files. Dominic Green, our friend from across the pond, wrote about it recently. I thought this was a particularly well-turned phrase or two. Sing, muse of Jeffrey Epstein, the man of many twists and turns who wandered full many ways until his odyssey came to an end in a cell in the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, where, despite being the most famous suspect in the land, no one was watching as he did or did not kill himself. Epstein's life and crimes are an American epic, Homeric in scale, appetite, and immorality. The 3.5 million pages of material in the Justice Department's information dump of January 30th would, if printed, amount to about 1,000 copies of War and Peace, or around 5,000 copies of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey in a single edition, with not exactly the same literary value, I may add. But, the thing that we, and as I've mentioned many times as we've discussed this, that we can't do, which is the source of so much frustration, perhaps leading even into criminal acts, as this young man who tried to access the president's private residence in Mar-a-Lago, I mentioned at the outset of the show, with a shotgun and a can of gasoline before confronted and killed by Secret Service when he raised a shotgun in defiance of them. Maybe partly inspired, this early reporting, maybe partly inspired by an obsession with the Epstein files. I don't know. That's what's one factoid that's been alleged. But we still can't get our arms around this, and that's the level of frustration. We still don't have a unified theory of what happened on so many fronts here and who the responsible parties are. Was he Mossad? Was he CIA? Was he a Russian asset? Was he all of the above? Was he none of the above? They just had parties, and any girls that were trafficked solely for the pleasure of Jeffrey and Ghislaine and no one else. His source of money was a couple of billionaires named Wexner and Black, or it wasn't. He has compromising information on all sorts of elites across the globe, or he doesn't. The basis for the estate to make the couple of hundred settlements worth tens of millions of dollars that were made with those who alleged that they were violated. But then there are some accusers who certainly have credibility questions. Accusations made in the direction of specific people, including quote-unquote Prince Andy, who is now actually facing a criminal prosecution. But that's it. After all that's said and done, we have millions of documents, but we still can't get a unified theory from the previous administration, from this administration, from those who follow this in terms of what did and didn't happen, what can and can't be done to hold those responsible, to hold those who participated in illegal activity responsible under the law. Do we have evidence problems? Do we have witness problems? Do we have statute of limitation problems? Do we have all of the above? All of these documents and all of these lawyers that pored over said documents and materials for hundreds of hours, and nobody can put together a cogent 10 or 15-page report that sums this up so people can try to wrap their minds around what did or didn't happen and at whose hands, all of them. That seems to me, that's my frustration. I don't know if that's shared by others or that's a compelling explanation for why this is so unnerving to so many, in addition to, of course, the seriousness of the accusations. So let's get some help. Dominic Green is a columnist for the Washington Examiner, contributor to the Wall Street Journal, and fellow at the Royal Historical Society as well. Dominic, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Great to be here.
So you heard my frustration. Is that a frustration you can alleviate?
To a very small degree, I think. I share the frustration that you have. As a historian, I'm always looking for evidence and then working back from that to assemble a coherent picture of motivations and events and so on. And what we have here is very partial. I would add this, this is a trove of information. Most of it does not go back before the late 1990s because emails are such a big part of it. What Epstein was doing before he got an email account is completely obscure to us in this. And I believe, from my own inquiries, and I think that will shed some light on what he's doing in the period that we now have this information on. And all this stuff has been dumped in one huge pile. I think it's an act of trust in the American people that they can not go completely crazy with it and make things up. But it's also an act of desperation in that there's no quality control and it'll take years to sift it all through. And what I believe from my very preliminary investigations, and it fits rather with what I've been finding out over the last few years when I've been asking people, as one does. Epstein was selling connections and access and information, and the people that we're seeing in these emails They are the late 1990s Democratic-oriented elite. We're talking about the Clintons, the fundraising circle for the Clintons, cutting-edge academics involved in life science research in places like Harvard. In other words, what you're not seeing is you're not seeing much of Donald Trump, for instance. You're not seeing much of Republican figures. You're seeing Ehud Barak, a failed Israeli prime minister. You're not seeing much of Benjamin Netanyahu or Ariel Sharon, who are his successors as more successful Israeli prime ministers. So this is a particular snapshot of a particular, what I call a ruling class. This is how things were done in the late 1990s, and it seems like a very long time ago now.
Well, and you also have some retrenching going on by talking heads. I thought this was pretty entertaining. Whoopi Goldberg, before her name appeared on the Epstein list.
Bottom line is this. Release the damn files and release them now. Release everything.
Yeah,
if this does not implicate Donald Trump, why wouldn't you say release everything? They absolutely have to show us what they're all hiding. If there's nothing to hide, release it all.
But all of that information is out there. Why not just put it to rest and say, release the list?
Because, they should just say, listen, this is what it is.
Yeah, so that was a pre-release list of the man-hating shrews on The View, and this is after Whoopi's on it.
Do you want to offer your G2? Okay.
And it looks like they said no thanks.
Yeah.
So in other words, anybody can be on this list.
Well, this is my point, because I'm telling you, when I tell you people are trying to turn me into, I wasn't his girlfriend. You used to have facts before you said stuff.
But Trump is on the list.
Then they were interested in facts, and I think she was dating Ted Danson at the time, so she's got an alibi. But I mean, that's the whole attitude about all of this stuff, which it just makes it that much murkier.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, the emails show people seeking free stuff and accepting free stuff. People who think they deserve free stuff, whether they're academics or they're on TV or they're just famous for something. They want to be recognized and they think that entitles them. And as I was saying, this is the class of the late 1990s, and they did feel entitled to it. And it's almost hard now, nearly 30 years later, to remember that mood of we won. We won and we're entitled to sweep the board. That mood, in a way, the backlash against it is in part what produced MAGA and the 2016 elections and the huge change that has happened in public life since then. But as to this question of who was Epstein working for, where did it all come from? One of the things this is the most you can say on it, is put it this way. The United States has the most powerful intelligence apparatus of any country in the world. It will be very, very remiss of its agencies not to have noticed this guy emailing with Russians using Microsoft Outlook, which is not exactly the most secure way of doing it, not to have noticed any of this. And to therefore have put tabs on him or have him reporting back to them. And I think there is a substantial element of misdirection going on, as you say, in the way that people are denying certain things, but also in our focus on Epstein as a sex criminal. And I'm not minimizing the horrors of this at all. I'm saying that the most salacious aspect, it might not actually be, historically, politically, the most interesting one. And when it comes to this question of transparency, we demand it, we're entitled to have it in law, and yet, somehow you never quite find out, because national security and the national interest remains good grounds for withholding material. So my supposition, therefore, is we're not ever going to get the smoking gun document, which says, I, Jeffrey Epstein, am working for X, Y, and Z. But if you were to ask me to go to a betting parlor, here in London and put something on it, I'd put money on Epstein primarily being employed by intelligence agencies of the United States. And as for how he made the money, some of that has come out in Britain, funnily enough, because of this Peter Mandelson, who was the big fixer for Tony Blair's Labour Party and also had a key influence in bringing Keir Starmer to the leadership of the Labour Party. The Mandelson emails show that Mandelson, when he was in the British government, leaking classified government correspondence to Epstein, so that Epstein would have been able, therefore, to make investments that would have made him look like some kind of financial genius to the people who were giving him their money to invest. So he may have made quite a lot of money like that.
But I mean, I still don't really have a clear picture of how he got so close to Wexner and how he allegedly had power of attorney for Les Wexner for real estate transactions for a period of time when Wexner was clearly of sound mind and body. I mean, those are the sort of, and the Leon Black relationship and the things that Leon, I mean, so maybe some of this is misdirection. Tom Pritzker, maybe some of those emails that are released and we're focused on, maybe that's misdirection, as you say. But there's a lot of powerful people. There's a lot of billionaires that he was close to, and they know, they know, or they should know what he's up to. And yet he has this access to them and in some cases to vast resources that they otherwise control.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that they would be on the lookout for that kind of chancer who would be promising to take care of things for them, or promising to make, returns on investments above the market average. I mean, those are the red light type things that would always flash in anyone's mind. This aspect of Epstein's life may well have been very similar, say, to Bernie Madoff. It may just have been the classic, Ponzi scamming. A charmer. I mean, how people found him charming is a bit baffling, but obviously some people did. Flattering people and playing them. This is clearly a very complicated person with several different compartments going on in his professional and social lives.
You think maybe like a cursory background check that you find him a convicted sex offender that may raise a flag. Maybe we don't better be associated with that.
Well, that's what I mean about, you would assume that the very powerful and very careful intelligence agencies would have been aware of that and would have been aware that a convicted sex offender after his release in 2009 continued socializing and working with very significant people all over the world, continued flying in and out of Russia as relations between the U.S. and Russia deteriorated. It is a matter of record that he was arrested during the first Trump administration and the papers were released in the second. Now, whether you take that as part of Donald Trump's campaign against the Clintons and the 90s Democratic establishment, maybe that is a big motive in it, but it's a fact that nobody of the 90s Democratic establishment was much interested in prosecuting this or turning it up at all at the time. And for what it's worth, I don't believe Epstein did kill himself. And I've never met anyone who does, by the way. So, and I've asked lots of people who are interested, follow this and knew him, you investigate these things. Nobody believes that. So I think we should keep demanding answers and keep demanding the material, and gradually then perhaps we'll get a clearer picture. And I think the answer will be both more surprising in some regards and actually less surprising, very prosaic and dull in other regards. In other words, there's something quite ordinary and mediocre about this man, visible in the emails, as well as this extraordinary fantasy life and this great energy he put into tricking people. A big wheel.
So what was it that finally caused authorities in Britain to move on Prince Andrew?
Well, the release of these papers. I mean, there's been a drip of stories about Prince Andrew ever since late 2010, when after Epstein's release from prison in Florida, Andrew went to stay with him in New York. And then by degrees, every time there was a new piece of information released, Andrew was forced to step back by degrees in public life until eventually he's been reduced from the Duke of York and Prince to being just Mr. Mountbatten Windsor. So he didn't want to leave public life. He was literally pushed aside by his own family because they could see he was going to sink the ship. And nothing would have happened about this in Britain if it hadn't been for the release of the papers. Nothing would have happened also about Peter Mandelson, who is now being investigated by the police here, if it hadn't been for the release of the papers in the U.S. Mandelson and Prince Andrew, as he used to be, they are collateral damage to this. They're distant figures in the same way as Ehud Barak's reputation has taken a further dent in Israel. These are marginal affairs. It's very interesting that inside the U.S. there doesn't seem to be the same attention paid to who was involved. And remember, this weird situation is that we are led to believe that Ghislaine Maxwell, who is in prison, who's also British, in prison for what is not entirely a victimless crime, but it is a crime without purpose. But all of this procuring of young girls, who were the Johns? Who were the men?
Well, exactly.
Of this?
And
I mean,
well,
that's ridiculous.
Right. It was just Jeffrey Epstein and herself. Well, but I mean, if it seems to me this is where, it also doesn't make sense, except like this is this is mafia. And so she is not going to roll on people that she could roll on because to save herself or to reduce her sentence because then she's next up to get Epstein.
Look what happened to him. Died in short, what we say, suspicious circumstances. Look what happened to her father, who was involved with some very interesting people in terms of intelligence work from the Cold War. Father went overboard from his yacht after defrauding his pension fund holders for the newspaper that he owned in Britain, the Mirror. So if I was her, I'd take the fifth as she did when she came up for parole, because the only alternative is she's going to have one of those mysterious accidents that seems to happen to people in that situation. So I think if it walks like a duck and it's quacking like one, then we can assume there is clearly no interest in prosecuting any of the men who took advantage of the services being offered by Maxwell and Epstein. And again, Peter Mandelson, who in American terms is an irrelevance. The guy was ambassador to Washington for a few months, and that was it. But Peter Mandelson, who's a big figure in Britain, is seen saying, he's feeling stressed out and he needs and then they make jokes about procuring young men for him. He says he needs a Cuban American or someone from Shanghai or something like that. There are allusions to his taste in men, which is Epstein seems to be pandering to. Now, there's no suggestion this was underage or, and so on, but it suggests that this was a routine occurrence. So are we to believe that only Peter Mandelson was taking advantage of what sounds to me like a flight roster that was very full of young women and probably young men as well? At the same moment in Britain, there is an investigation going on to the fact that women were being trafficked through the airports, the secondary, tertiary airports around London, where you didn't have to register who was on the plane if it was a private jet. And again, there's no suggestion that they were underage. They seem to have come from Russian agencies. But again, is that the actual story? That someone wasn't filling out the correct flight manifest? No, the actual story is what happened when they got there and what happened to them afterwards. Somebody should probably be looking into that. So there are more questions than answers, but from already what we're seeing fits a pattern. This is, an international aspect of sex trafficking combined with an international trading of information and so on. And where those two come together, you can expect actually to be blackmail to be involved as well. Yet there is no evidence yet of that, really. So,
Dominic Green, columnist for the Washington Examiner, contributor to the Wall Street Journal, and fellow of the Royal Historical Society. Dominic, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
And Dominic Green joined us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
If you're over 65 and struggling with knee pain, Joint Relief Institute offers a guaranteed way to treat it. It's non-surgical and often covered by Medicare and private insurance. It's JRI's Joint Arthritis Treatment, knee lubrication placement that's so accurate, it's 100% guaranteed and can relieve your knee and shoulder pain in 10 minutes or less. Book your risk-free consultation today and get back to walking, golfing, pickleball to cycling without pain or medication. Call 708-315-6800. Meet the provider, get an x-ray and joint consultation. Why wait? JRI has treated over 30,000 Chicagoans and performed over 400,000 procedures. You could be next. Over 5,000 five-star Google reviews can't be wrong.
Stop living in pain. Call the Joint Relief Institute today, 708-315-6800, or visit jointreliefinstitute.com. Locations in Glenview, Oak Brook, and Orland Park. That's 708-315-6800 for the Joint Relief Institute. Medicare and most private insurance plans accepted.
The following is a paid political announcement.
There's one thing I really want to say to Donald Trump. If you come for my people, you come through me.
That was Pritzker's challenge to President Trump. But who are Pritzker's people? They're the more than 1,700 illegal alien predators he helped escape from ICE. They're the illegal aliens whose health care, rent, and college tuition you pay for. You can't afford to stay because Pritzker makes you pay for his people. Well, I have a message for you, Governor. I'll be coming for you and going through you. Your days and the days of sanctuary living for your people are over. I'm Ted Dabrowski, your conservative candidate for governor, and I'm asking for your vote in the Republican primary on March 17th. Paid for by Ted for Illinois.
AM 560, The Answer.
Blocked across. Now Jack Hughes pokes it around the park. United States with numbers. Blocked across it comes. Jack Hughes wins it. The golden goal for the United States.
This is all about our country right now. I love the USA. I love my teammates. It's unbelievable. The USA Hockey Brotherhood is so strong. And we had so much support from ex-players. I'm so proud to be American today.
This was
so proud.
This was such
Yeah,
an
it was
game.
quite the Miracle on Ice part 2 over the weekend. Congratulations to Team USA, Jack Hughes and the whole gang, as well as the women's team, too. Took home the gold against the Canadians as well. Thanks for joining us on another edition of Chicago's Morning Answer. State of the Union preview tomorrow. Join us at 5 a.m. It's now 9 a.m. on AM 560 WIND.
It's shutting things down, knocking out power, and grounding flights. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. A blizzard hitting the Northeast. Fox Weather's Bob Van Dillon out in the storm in New Jersey.
A nor'easter is a weird one. When you get the bands that shape up right over the head, you can get 2 to 4 inches of snow per hour. That's what we've been in now for the last hour and a half in Neptune, New Jersey. Now about 10 miles over to my east in Freehold, 22.5 inches of snow already. But that measurement was taken a couple of hours ago, so I'm sure they've got more.
There have been wind gusts in this blizzard at hurricane force over 70 miles an hour. There are near more than 600,000 power outages, Virginia up to New England. And while driving is treacherous, this blizzard is also grounding a lot of planes in the Northeast and ones that were supposed to fly there. Fox Business Network's Connor Hansen is at Reagan National Airport.
Hundreds of flights have been canceled just today here in Washington, D.C.